From the raw and rustic beauty of the Rocky Mountains one week to the serenity of California wine country the next, the second stop of the famed NHRA Western Swing finds the NHRA Series in Sonoma, California. This is a place renowned for its rich soil, its grapes, and its agrarian way of life. It may not seem like it, but wine and drag racing share one vital component essential in making them both great. It's all about the pairing. If you look a little bit closer, it all makes so much sense. As a vintner crushes grapes to get the best flavors, NHRA racers compress explosive fuels to make exceptional horsepower. And like wine, sometimes there are surprises in the process. A pairing that seems like a slam dunk on paper can shock your palate in an instant.
Higgins smokes the tire! Tear up your ladder because nobody had that written down.
One that seems wrong can leave you not only satisfied, but stupefied.
Sorry, you got beat on the whole time, baby.
Some may say in drag racing that the perfect pairing is simply between the driver and the car, but those people would be wrong. It's all about the team. And teams, like wine, need time to mature in age. But can we actually see the magic in these pairings? 7 days ago, we did in the full living color of life. The NHRA Denso Sonoma Nationals are coming up next on Fox.
The scene outside of San Francisco is one of murky skies and cool air. It's called the marine layer, and for drag racers, it is a gift from the atmospheric heavens. Why? Because this marine layer, keeping the temperature down, will allow them to make massive horsepower. Horsepower they cannot employ on Lombard Street, but if you took Lombard Street, grabbed it on both ends, and pulled it tight, it would be a drag strip. And that's exactly where we are today on the second stop of the NHRA Western Swing, which began 1 week ago at Bandimere Speedway with a density altitude of near 9,000 feet, choking engines and causing massive loss of horsepower. This weekend's Denso Sonoma Nationals, it is the opposite scenario. We are at sea level, it is fast, and we set ourselves up for the third leg of the trip next weekend to the flavor-packed Northwest Nationals in Kent, Washington. Hello, everyone, and welcome to famed Sonoma Raceway here, just 13 physical feet above sea level, and it is a horsepower-making heaven on a very cool Sunday at this drag strip, which has been open for more than 50 years. It's the Denso Sonoma Nationals, and it promises to be one of the wildest first rounds of eliminations and, frankly, elimination days of the entire season. Welcome to the broadcast booth. We are high above this drag racing surface, nearly in the clouds with the low ceiling we have this morning. I'm Brian Loans, joined as always by Tony Pedregon. And Tony, 1 week ago, we were choking, we were wheezing, we didn't want to walk up the steps. This morning we show up to the drag strip. It is cool, and it is going to be very fast. These crew chiefs have had to make a 180 to make tuning changes last week to this week. Who does it favor, and what do they fix?
Well, for starters, I know a lot of racers are glad to get off that high elevation. Some of them could not get arrested, but the power they couldn't find, they have. It comes naturally here. But it's not just the sea level, the power that they make. It also brings a good racetrack because of the cool air, but a lot of downforce. So they have all the components to go in quick as fast as they potentially or possibly can. They need only do it better than their competition in the other lane, and we have plenty of great first-round matchups.
We got a lot of spare parts down there, too, and we may use some of those up. This is Top Fuel Eliminator.
Also called the Kings of the Sport, they have earned this nickname for being the quickest accelerating race cars on this planet anyway. The chassis is built of a high-strength aircraft-grade chromoly tubing and covered with lightweight carbon fiber body panels. The drivers will experience over 5.5 G's of acceleration within the first 3 seconds of a run.
And it was Leah Pruitt experiencing that acceleration harder than anybody else last weekend at the Mile High Nationals. Why? She won the race, a huge moment for this team, the first Tony Stewart Racing Top Fuel win. It changes the game.
Well, this team started out good. It's the driver that had to overcome some of the demons that these drivers carry with them, a lot of the pressure that they hold with them. However, they were able to deal with them and deal with them well by coming out with that trophy at the highest elevation.
For Leah Pruitt and Tony Stewart Racing on the Top Fuel side, it has been the tale of 2 seasons. And this season is really picking up steam for her because qualifying session 1, she comes off a win and sets low ET of qualifying.
Well, look at it. It's night under the lights. You can see the unburned fuel hitting the atmosphere. And it was Leah Pruitt, fresh off of that victory, that made all of those adjustments mechanically. This is good tuning decisions by her tuner.
Track was perfect, and frankly, it is setting up to be quicker and faster this morning than it was Friday night. The tale of 2 seasons, the first 7 races, 6 starts, 1 DQ, a 1-6 round record for Leah. And then the last 4 races of this season, the worm has turned. 4 starts, 1 win, 1 semifinal, and now a number 1 qualifier. We welcome Jamie Howe to the broadcast to talk to the resurgent Leah Pruitt.
For Leah Pruitt, she is coming off of her first win of the season, carried that momentum all the way into another #1 qualifying position. Leah, for you and this team to get that win behind you now, how does race day feel different?
I believe that we have more confidence in what we're doing, the execution that we're able to have. But this is a whole different ballpark than Denver. You know, we don't really have a setup for Sonoma as a team, as a unit. So for us to get that #1 qualifier to start race day Sunday in the best possible position, just going to hopefully keep that momentum going all day long. But it starts in round 1.
As good as Leah has been, we got to take a look at Steve Torrence. He's the defending event champion here. No, they have not racked up a win so far in 2022, but this weekend is setting up to be one of their most impressive qualifying efforts. Why? It wasn't that they were low ET of qualifying, it's that they were so consistent and quick.
All of the runs within 100th of a second. This is why you cannot count out the 4-time champion Steve Torrence.
71-0, 70 with a 1, 371.5. That is scary quick. And it is scary consistent, just like our man Bruno Massel, who's with Steve Torrence.
Steve Torrence will enter race day for the #4 qualifying spot. The defending event champ looks to find his mojo back because Denver was a struggle for this team. They had a hard time making power. Well, you made power this week, and you've been quick and consistent all 3 runs within 100th of a second. What do you have to do now for this team to bring home the wall here today, Steve?
Well, in Denver, it wasn't a matter of power. It was a matter of me stepping on the gas on time because the car did well on Sunday. Just keep our heads up, keep the momentum going. Richard and Bobby are developing this tune-up, and I'm pretty proud of it. I think that it's going to go out and run well. We'll see what the conditions give us today, but I got a lot of faith in these Capco boys standing behind me.
The first round ladder in Top Fuel is an embarrassment of riches. Antron Brown and Sean Langdon, Steve Torrence, Tony Schumacher, Brittany Forrest, Austin Prock, and that's just my side.
Well, I've got a big one on this side. Josh Hart, who has been very solid, taking on Clay Millican. Surprised to see him on the bottom half of the ladder.
A relentless slate of competition is set for this morning. And that relentless slate of competition begins right now with Josh Hart and Clay Millican, the first pair down this drag strip. And Tony, this is La La Land performance-wise right now. The density altitude is under 500 feet. The racetrack is under 100 degrees. And as we said yesterday during qualifying, God hates a coward, and neither of these guys fit that description.
Well, if this were a superhero movie with great power would come great responsibility, but in this sport with great power comes a skill set to be able to manage it. That's what the tuners are having to do, manage the clutch system, the fuel system, and the level of power they'll generate.
Josh Hart trying to manage his position in the points, which right now stands at 5th. As Clay Millican eats the tires in his Denso-sponsored Top Fuel dragster, he is trying to not get kicked any further down from his number 9 position. It's tenuous as Doug Coletta is trying to chase him down. As we watch these 2 cars back up, we go to the starting line. Bruno Massel has more, but Bruno, this is way more comfortable than he had last Sunday.
It is beautiful out here this morning, Brian, that is for sure. For Clay Millican, it is all smiles for his team as well, because they came into that last-ditch qualifying effort having to make the show with Denso, the race sponsor, on the side of the car. A lot of pressure for that team, and the car overachieved. The goal was just to get down and even run a high 380, low 390. They went 376, and that leaves this team brimming with confidence here in the first round.
Josh Hart, the R&L Carriers top fueler across the racetrack, is a guy who can certainly get with the program on the starting line. The air temperature at this moment, less than 60 degrees. The track temperature, 92. And as mentioned, the density altitude, 396 feet. We went from a choking atmosphere 1 week ago to an atmosphere where these engines will make excess horsepower. We'll find out if the superchargers remain bolted to the top of the engines as both machines now come into pre-stage. A brilliant drag race to kick us off here in round 1. Top Fuel, a 373.3 beats a 373.4. Tony, 38 10,000ths, 22 inches at 328 miles an hour at the finish line.
Brian, what a way to start off, to kick off a first round with these extremely good conditions. Now, Clay Millican was the better car based on his last qualifying run, but Josh Hart, like he has done over the last several races, this is the car, this is the driver that we have seen in the late rounds. These cars, these drivers are negotiating these cars. You can see the black tracks. The rear tires never really have a 1-to-1 ratio to the track. 6,000 pounds of downforce being applied by that rear wing, and look at the margin of victory, and it was really based on Josh's ability to get off of the starting line slightly ahead of Clay.
You know, Tony, there have been approximately 6.2 million ways discovered to lose a drag race, and none of them feel any better than the other. But that was a brilliant one. Milliken and crew have nothing to hang their head about there. As we now look at the starting line, the Montana Brands Rocky Mountain Twist top fueler of Austin Prock will line up next to his teammate, Brittany Force. What did John Force Racing Cup bring on the Western Swing? How about 450 pistons, 150 connecting rods, 180 clutch discs, 1,500 spark plugs, 9 engines, 24 sets of tires, 16 cylinder heads, 30 supercharger belts, 6 superchargers, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Well, Brian, the spark plugs, they change after every run. Cylinder temperatures near the finish line close to 2,000 degrees. However, a lot of those parts, they do inspect, they do cycle back in. We're going to see plenty of that pit thrash throughout the race.
The flavor pack top fuel dragster of Brittany Force on the right-hand side of this drag strip Toyota side, qualified 5th. And another brutal side-by-side contest, a 366.2 at 336.07 miles an hour. Brittany Force has shattered the track record in both speed and elapsed time in one fell swoop. That is the quickest and fastest run in the history of this drag strip.
Well, tip of the hat to Austin Prock. He did all that a driver could. However, in these conditions that we talk about that are so good, now we see that overcast, that marine layer, it has burned off, so the UV isn't really going to affect the track temperature. What happens when the track temperature increases, it'll start to take away some of the grip. But under these conditions, when it's 60 degrees outside, the Brittany Force car is able to flex their muscles and apply most of the massive horsepower they can generate.
We watch Austin Prock in slow motion. We see the cylinder failing to fire, and that would be his downfall. The loss instantaneously of more than 1,000 horsepower slowed that car down and allowed Brittany Force to motor not only into the history books, but into round number 2. When we come back, Leah Pruitt will take to the drag strip. She won the last race, the number 1 qualifier. Does she advance out of round 1? Stay with us.
The Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Denso. The best part is peace of mind.
Couple of mammals having a day off today. Not our drag racers, though they're working.
I see the ones that are awake, they just were woken up by Brittany Force's run.
Our Lucas Oil Top Fuel Ladder shows Josh Hart advancing, Brittany Force advancing out of her matchup against Austin Prock. And our next pair of dragsters on the starting line now is one of the big underdog-overdog matchups of round number 1. Doug Coletta, who has won multiple times here, backs up his Mack Tools Top Fuel Dragster, as tuned by Alan Johnson. He has 5 wins among our active drivers, the most. Antron Brown with 3, J.R. Todd with 2. You see Torrance and Schumacher both with a pair, and a couple of other drivers with a single. Now, Ron August Jr. is across the racetrack. He is from Pleasanton, California. He is one of our local regionalized Top Fuel racers. He is having a great weekend. The car qualified at 391. His biggest problem is the fact that Doug Coletta qualified at 369.
Oh, we talked about one of the independents, Greg Carrillo, just a week ago in Denver. Well, Ron August has done the same thing. He is choosing quality over quantity. They've spent a lot of time in the shop working on their setup, working on good parts for this one race. They're going to need it. Doug Coletta is a tough customer, very consistent, has a performance back.
Alan Johnson knows this place like the back of his hand. Let's see what he's cooked up for Doug's tune-up in round number 1. And a pop as they blow an engine at the top end, 371.9 at 325 miles an hour. Tony, they were leaning on it. It backfired at the big end and still went 371.
Yeah, they leveled the engine. You can see the tuner, Alan Johnson. He is taking a look at the damage. He's already trying to think what they're going to need, what supercharger they need to put on this car, change the intake manifold. The car was accelerating very well to the 8th mile, 295 miles an hour, and that's just at 660 feet. And as the car accelerates, you can see those rear Goodyears are nearly locked down. But take a look at Doug Coletta on the right side of your screen. Just start to overpower and pull away from Ron August.
August ran 396.6, not a bad run. And you can see the supercharger, the injector, just bouncing around there. 100-plus pounds of weight being restrained on top of the engine with those ballistic straps. And there is another casualty, which is the supercharger belt shredded like yarn at the top end of the drag strip, retrieved by the NHRA Safety Safari. So as we've had this incredible first round, the biggest news we've had so far, that 366.2. Brittany Force laid it down to the flavor pack top fueler, and Brittany Force is with Jamie Howe at the big end of the drag strip.
And when the conditions are there to make not only her best run of the weekend, but the best run ever here in Sonoma, the quickest and the fastest, what is that conversation with your crew chief like in those final minutes before it's time to go?
You know, it's Grubnick. It's first round, and he's running like it's Friday night, Q1, when you have the best conditions. And we did have great conditions. The sun's starting to come out, but to run a 366 and put, mile per hour on the board, to be able to do that with this team, it's just incredible. So proud of these guys, this flavor pack team, and I hate going against my teammate. There's nothing worse than that, but if I'm not rooting for our team, I'm rooting for that Montana brand Austin Proc team. But we got the win, and we have 3 more rounds to go.
Excited, and she well should be after making localized history here at Sonoma Raceway. The Race Rendine Foundation top fuel dragster of Leah Pruitt, coming off of the win last weekend at the Mile High Nationals and leading the qualifying charge. We're going to talk more with Leah about building the team that won the Mile High Nationals in this week's E3 Spark Plugs Building a Team.
It's been just over 9 months since Tony Stewart Racing announced their Nitro program, with the funny car driven by Matt Hagan and the top fuel dragster driven by Leah Pruitt. Now, in the case of Matt Hagan, that team was already assembled. They took their same crew chief with Dickie Venables, they took all of their same crew members and then brought them over to Tony Stewart Racing. But in the case of Leah Pruitt, that organization has been built from the top all the way down to the bottom. And Leah, for you, you only had one crew member return to your organization. That was Neil Strasbaugh, who took on the role of being crew chief for the first time. What confidence did you have in the program the early part of the season?
I believe it just starts with an unwavering commitment to excellence, and that's starting with Tony. And I would say, instead of working from the top down, we worked from the top through. So Neil was by far our backbone in creating this team and working diligently with just the 2 and 3 of us alongside Dickie and Stretch over there, and then the employment factor. But every person that's on this team, on this Dodge Power Brokers, Race Rendine, all of the partners that we have, everyone that's on this team is kind of a culmination of their own career. And that's what we're seeing today. And the culture that we wanted to build for this team is what we have now. And that's why we're able to enjoy it as much as we do.
Being able to get the first win with this brand new team back at the Mile High Nationals just a week ago, seeing that come to fruition from the driver's seats, what did that mean to you?
There's such a different type of joy that was in my heart, different from the Denver win that I had before. It was someone like Mike and Neil's commitment to this entire sport, and they have gone from the bottom end to clutch to everything but driving the car, and for them to win in that position and for me to be a part of that makes me so happy. It just puts all of the thousands of hours kind of to rest for that moment, that night. And I guess what I'm most impressed about right now is the way that we've been able to sustain our performance and not let a win overcome the work ethic that everyone has, and we just try to continue to pursue, to prevail, and that's what's important right now.
As always, very interesting E3 Spark Plug, the Cyclo Speedy there, getting some insight into the team. Our Fatheads Eyewear drone cam looking down upon the left side of the racetrack, which is Jim Maroney out of Mesa, Arizona, the Cornwell Tools Dealers sponsored top fueler, and Leah Pruitt, the #1 qualifier. Calls Lake Havasu City home, spends a lot of time in Indiana with her husband, Tony Stewart, of course. Neil Strasbaugh, Mike Domagala. We knew they had the skills, now they get the confidence.
Yeah, they have the confidence, and this is a look at Jim Maroney, and the approach he has to take is don't beat himself. He had a good qualifying run. The car expired early, but there's Leah's car. It's great to see Kevin Rudine, friend of the sprint car community, now of the NHRA community. Great to see him standing behind his race car, along friends with Tony Stewart. I know he's a close friend of my brother's, Cruz. And just big in the sprint car community. Great to see them here.
Great community work with the Race Rendine Foundation, battling against the scourge of opioid addiction. Here we go. My goodness, a flaming explosion for Maroney down there. A 372.9 and 328.86 miles an hour for Pruitt. And Jim Maroney just absolutely fireballed one at the big end of the drag strip.
Yeah, this is a good run for Leah. Unfortunate for Jim Maroney. They have a lot of parts damage. But you look at the performance of Leah versus Brittany Forrest. Well, Brittany was in a position that they really had to press. They had a very tough opponent. Not to take anything away from Jim Maroney, but this is a good, safe strategy for this team.
As we watch again, you can see the head gasket go away. Some combustion begins to escape, and then a 300-ish mile an hour inferno as Maroney drove it down the racetrack. So Mike Salinas takes to the drag strip after the safety safari cleaned up what Jim Maroney left behind for us. The Pleasanton Ready Mix sponsored Top Fuel dragster, the Scrappers Racing Team. This is will be Salinas' first round win at his home track. Kind of a stunning situation, and he will get it unopposed as Cameron Foray, driving Terry Haddock's Top Fuel dragster, Tony, really became the first of our Carnage victims last night. They leveled the engine in this dragster on a qualifying run.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate they're not able to make the call, but Terry Haddock's team very limited on parts, and they don't have much of anything. And we're going to take a look at the run from Cameron Foray that did the damage.
We're going to talk to him first. Bruno's got him in the starting line.
Unfortunately, Cameron Foray is stuck talking to me versus sitting in his Top Fuel car right now. Cameron, explain to the folks at home what happened and how come you guys weren't able to make this call.
Well, unfortunately, we in Q2, we were on a really good run for Terry Haddock Racing's dragster, and unfortunately it broke a valve train component and a head stud, and it just kind of erupted everything. And when it did that, it blew out the belly pan and all the mud flaps and a lot of the body work of the carbon fiber stuff for the car. And unfortunately, it's kind of like a one shoe fits one car. So I want to give a huge thank you to DSR and all these other teams, Scott Palmer and everybody offering their buckets and their mud flaps, but unfortunately they just weren't going to fit. And Terry had a big boomer on Friday night, so we were up pretty much. I haven't slept in the last couple of days, but we're doing everything we can to stay out here and chase this NHRA drag racing thing. And yeah, we'll do our best to be at the next one. So thank you guys.
As much as they look the same, these are bespoke race cars, and as Cameron told us, they are not necessarily interchangeable parts across all platforms. So how quick and fast does Mike Salinas go to try to likely maintain lane choice in round number 2? Hit the tree square with a 77, some hot pipes on the right-hand side of the engine, but Tony at 3.709, 3:23.66 will advance Mike Salinas into round 2. His opponent will be named when Justin Ashley takes to the racetrack against his foe, Alex Laughlin. When we come back, it will be time to continue round 1 eliminations in Top Fuel. That is Alex Laughlin in the Haviland Top Fuel dragster, and Steve Torrence still chasing win number 1 of 2022. It may come here.
Welcome back to Sonoma Raceway here at the Denso Nationals in Sonoma, California. We're back in Top Fuel action. Next pair up, it is Alex Laughlin taking on Justin Ashley. Justin is a guy who is really pushing for the championship here this year. The team struggled in qualifying, though, the first 2 sessions. The last one, the 371, is the number they're trying to repeat here. But one of the things he told me I thought was interesting was the fact that they learned more from the runs that they are unsuccessful. They kind of find the limits as to what the car can, the track can handle, and then they back it down a hair from there.
We'll find out if they have backed it down enough or if Alex Laughlin and Scott Palmer have stepped the Haviland car up to match them. Another wheels up launch for Ashley, and he is off to the races. 375.2, 323.5 miles an hour. A great run for Alex Laughlin at 3.803, 3.15. They did not give him an inch, but Justin Ashley grabbed a victory.
No, very respectable. But take a look at the launch. The weight distribution on the top side of your screen for Justin Ashley. This car, the way it distributes the weight to those rear Goodyear tires, it's a little lighter than most dragsters on the front end. It's pretty impressive. The car will actually get the front tires up in the air. The driver is very well. It does not intimidate him. He stays on the throttle, hopes that it settled down, and when it does, those rear tires just continue to accelerate and grow.
Such an awesome sight to see that car leave the starting line, and we see the Capco Contractors top fueler, 4-time defending world champion Steve Torrence backing up. Torrence qualified 4th. We spoke about his consistency in qualifying. He's also the defending event champion here. Let's talk more about Steve Torrence with Bruno Massel.
Right, Steve told me that they found their consistency in finding their power back. They had an issue with blowers over the last weekend in Denver. They really struggled to make power. They brought in their blower specialist from Indiana, had him come with them this weekend. Power levels are back, consistency is back, and Steve feels like he has a car that can win once again.
Tony Schumacher, the Okuma, Skag. Machine here rolling in. The Maynard Family Foundation also a big part of this operation. A tire smoking run for Tony Schumacher. Steve Torrence, 368.7, punching a hole in the atmosphere at 325.37 miles an hour. Tony Schumacher eliminated that tire smoking 551. There are some major rumors circulating around Don Schumacher Racing and what may be a potential sale of the operation. We'll wait and see what happens with that this week. But for the racing end of it, Tony's done.
Well, look, regardless of the lack of being where they want to be with the setup for Tony,
high standards he maintains for himself, and those high standards have resulted in national event victories. This, the CMR Roofing and Construction DHL Top Fuel Dragster. DHL presence in this area is enormous. We see the Matco Tools top fuel dragster of Antron Brown, the most Western Swing wins among active drivers on the Western Swing. Antron Brown owns that with 11, even outfoxing Tony Schumacher, who has 9. DHL was founded in San Francisco back in 1969. Their presence, as I mentioned, is huge. Toyota side for Langdon, Antron Brown, the E3 spark plug side. It is Langdon who has had the better car over the last several races. It is Brown who desperately needs round wins. And they're going to make a contest out of it. A huge explosion for Brown, as it will be 374.3. Sean Langdon advances on. Antron Brown goes 376.3 at 324, and he does so with a 300-mile-an-hour pyrotechnics display to end the run.
Well, nearly identical off the starting line, but within the first 60 feet, it was Sean Langdon just out-accelerating Antron. You could see the slightest advantage for Sean as these cars approach the 8th mile. And it wasn't long after that, we're going to see the white car, the Matco machine, experiencing counter engine damage. And he was close to being out of the race, but that, for the most part, did them in.
And we watch at the finish line stripe. Look at that, a Viking funeral for the Hemi in the back of that top fueler as Sean Langdon streaked down to a 374.3. And one more look at this one, Tony. It goes wrong so quickly.
Yeah, and more than likely there was some internal engine damage. Through the course of the run, it just reared its head as they were near the finish line.
With these type of conditions, we see this type of carnage because these parts are being pushed to their absolute and utter limit. If you thought the first round of Top Fuel was interesting, we have gone full-on Shakespeare for round 2. Pruitt and Langdon, a rematch of the final round that Sean was unable to compete in 1 week ago. Torrance and Force, the 2 quickest cars out of the first round, will face off against each other. Coletta and Hart, and the final pairing is another dandy as well. When we come back, we will move in to the Nitro Funny Car ranks. That's Ron Capps and the GR Supra. And yes, it will be Ron Capps and John Force taking each other on in the first round. Stay with us.
The Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Camping World, making RVing fun and easy since 1966.
An evolution while at work when we talk about the Nitro Funny Car that has transformed this machine from a production car off of the showroom floor that featured a massive engine with a supercharger sticking out of the hood that may have looked a little funny to a modern day 330 mile per hour ground shaking nitro burning carbon fiber body race car with a top speed of over 330 miles per hour. Carbon on carbon brakes need the assistance of 2 parachutes to help slow down this 2,600 pound machine.
It has been Robert Height that has best tamed the Nitro Funny Car category in 2022. He has been dominant. Here's how it's looked. Final round of Nitro Funny Car. Hagen's car moving around early. Height wrestling his car. He shuts it off. 383.7, 330. It is going to be Robert Height making it to the finish line first. Hagen coasts to a 4-0.
This is a big win. Thank you. Yeah.
And it's time to go. They leave almost dead even. What a final round at Funny Car. And it goes to Robert Height, another 390, 3907, 328. Robert Height collects career victory number 56.
One of these days, I've always wanted to swing, sweep the swing. And you got to start with Denver. Won Denver quite a few times. Won Sonoma, I think, the last 3 or 4 years. We got to get it all, though.
They lead with an 8,000. Robert Height is going to drive away, and he wins the final round of the Mile High Nationals. 4:06.5, 311 miles an hour. It is Robert Height handling his business. Both drivers were spectacular on the starting line. A 40 line for Height. Yeah! Right now, Robert Height could win a funny car race on the moon. Nobody wants to see him racing here this weekend. Why? He owns this place. He has won the last 3 times we've competed here. He's the #1 qualifier this weekend. And oh yeah, he made the fastest pass in the history of drag racing at this facility in 2017. The only thing he hasn't done yet is talk to Bruno. We're going to handle that right now.
Sonoma Raceway is the track that Robert Hight calls home, and it's kind of ironic that conditions here play to this team's strengths more often than not. Robert, you come into race day as the big favorite, the #1 qualifying effort. What makes you so good in quick and fast conditions like we'll see here today?
Well, I think it's Jimmy Prock and Chris Cunningham. They like to push, they like to be aggressive, and it fits. You know, this is a really good racetrack, a lot better than others. You know, it's very flat. Then you get these conditions, cool conditions. Man, they're just licking their chops in there. It's good. Hopefully, it's going to be a good day for the Auto Club Chevy.
One man who will try to stop Hight from having that good day is Ron Capps, who has had his share of success here. 1997, 2010, 2011, and 2013 winner. He is tied with Robert Hight for the second most victories at this racetrack. Now we're going to look back at Friday night qualifying and Ron Capps specifically, his best run of the year.
Yeah, Ron Capps really started the evening off with this run to test the racetrack, called it an e-ticket ride. I hate to admit, I know what an e-ticket ride is.
The kids today know it as a fast pass. Either way, a 384.6 was a brilliant, brilliant run for Ron Capps in this Napa GR Super on Friday evening. The only person that was quicker than him, of course, was Robert Hight. Now let's talk to the man who was quick, but not quite quick enough. Ron Capps is with Jamie Howe.
But what he was quick enough for, Brian, was to have lane choice over John Force in the first round of eliminations. Ron, looking back at your career, there is nobody you've raced more than John Force. 115 meetings between the two of you. How is it different going into race day with this giant on the other lane?
It's a final round. It's a championship matchup. It is John Force. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, your number 2 qualifier, congratulations. You got John Force first round, and that's the way it goes sometimes. Obviously, conditions right now, it's going to be stout. I mean, it could be as good as it was Friday night. So Guido and our guys, y'all step on the gas and try to hang on. But listen, it's a great car, and we know they got a lot of personnel over there, and that's the other thing. So cool conditions, you can't take them lightly. It's John Force, and we'll see if we can throw this Toyota Supra out in front of him, but it's going to be a fun day either way.
And now we look at the Nitro Funny Car ladder presented to us by Lucas Oil for the first round of eliminations. And really, Tony, that is, to me, the biggest matchup, kind of bookended only by that Wilkerson-Todd matchup.
Yeah, and it really doesn't end there. Take a look at the Snap-on team, qualified number 6, up against Matt Hagan. We've been talking so much about him in the bottom half of the field.
So the Denso Sonoma Nationals, Nitro Funny Car round 1. If you thought first round of Top Fuel was compelling, let's start talking about funny cars here. The Ford Motorcraft Quick Lane Mustang of Bob Tasker III out of Cranston, Rhode Island. Body coming up here. Crew making their final checks. Let's hear more from Bruno Massel.
Well, Brian, I talked to Bob Tasker yesterday after the last qualifying session. They were in a strong 386, and he was not only smiling but praising his crew chiefs for taking a risk. He's like, I don't mind taking risks. We got to try something. We want to be competitive in this category. It's so tough right now. A new tune-up that had only 5 runs on it was with the equation and the recipe that got them that run. He said, we're sticking with what the hot hand is, and that run at 386 is 387, I should say, should parlay to an 86 here today.
He will be dealing with this man, Jason Rupert of Anaheim, California. Rupert, a multi-time champion in Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car Racing a couple years ago, committed himself to running a full-sized NHRA Nitro Funny Car. They have worked their way through some of the kinks. They may be able to give Task a fits here. A little wiggle for Rupert and a clean straight run for Task. A 387.5. Hello. 330.07 miles an hour. He matches his qualifying elapsed time to the thousandths of a second.
Well, Brian, I'm glad I didn't have any time to talk, because I would have said I cannot imagine that they're going to come out here and try to duplicate what they did in qualifying. That was a very impressive run. It even impressed a lot of the other drivers, a lot of the other funny car teams, but here they come rolling out that same kind of performance that tells us the track still has a lot of teeth.
That was a message sent across the bow of every other Nitro Funny Car team here today, which is better take us seriously at your own risk. The Circle Racing Wheels Mustang of Terry Haddock. We talked to Cameron Bray in Top Fuel, who was driving the Top Fuel car that blew up last night that owned by Terry Haddock. But this Pep Boys, this is a repair for Pep Boys segment, is a flaming one for Haddock on the right side of your screen.
It was a good run up until 700-800 feet. The engine explosion, the party's not over. It's hot and very intense for the driver. He cannot see. You can see that burst panel. But the concussion, the pressure, the oil, the nitro, all of the temperature is what is feeding this flame.
How does a low-dollar team fix all this damage? They work day and night. Listen.
So Terry, obviously a tough struggle to come back from what you guys went through last night. What is it, the biggest challenge as a smaller team trying to rebuild from last night to get ready for today?
The biggest problem we'll have is, first of all, figuring out what happened, and we determined what happened there, and now it's just getting everybody to work on the thing. We've got another motor to put in the car, we've got cylinder heads, we've got all the parts to get the car back together, a bunch of burnt wires to deal with, but the body's been the biggest struggle. When it exploded, it blew all the tree work out of it and split a lot of the carbon fiber, so everybody's working on it. We've had a bunch of help from other teams. We'll get it back together. We'll be ready for Sunday.
And again, Pep Boys, this is a repair for Pep Boys. It has been a heck of a repair for Terry Haddock and team just to get this thing back on the racetrack. They made that one attempt of qualifying, which put him in the show, and they worked the entire 2 following qualifying sessions, and the car has not yet seen the racetrack until this moment. Alexis DeJoria, the GR Supra, Rocket Phones, Bandero Premium Tequila. And it's another quickie for Alexis, 3905, 328.78 miles an hour. Fun fact to know and share, Tony, this car has the lowest average elapsed time on Sundays, and they keep making clean runs.
Well, you've got Del Worsham, a former funny car champion, a former funny car driver that knows all of the ins and outs of these machines, and he's been racing this car very well. And you talk about the highest degree of difficulty to be in one of these short wheelbase machines. The driver is sitting directly behind that high-powered engine.
So Alexis DeJoria will advance on to round number 2, and Terry Haddock made a clean run. We got all kinds of people here at the drag strip. The mayor of Flavortown stopped in. Come back and see him. We'll watch him too. Boys All-Star Funny Car call-out at the U.S. Nationals. These are 4 of the 8 drivers that will make it in. There is still that 8th spot to be contested. J.R. Todd is the odd man out right now, trying to fight his way in to battle for a purse of well over $100,000. Airing on FS1 Sunday at the U.S. Nationals as we see Robert Hite. We know he's going to be in there. The Auto Club Chevrolet Camaro rolls ahead. This car has won the last 3 events we have held at this drag strip. #1 qualifier, and that's the brains of the operation, Jimmy Prock.
And Jimmy Prock well on his way to maybe being the 2nd greatest funny car tuner, right behind the great Austin Coyle with John Force for so many years. He's got a ways to go, but the job he has been doing on that AAA machine is incredible.
Jeff Deal's wife Lisa steps away from his car. Much more homespun operation for Jeff Deal. He is the major underdog here. Deal smokes the tires. You can see Robert's car smoking the tires down course and actually beginning to move around a little bit. He lifted off the throttle, goes to 402, 260.
Well, Jimmy Prock, who tunes this machine, he's looking at the other cars. He saw 387. Take a look behind the AAA car. I'm looking for those black tracks, and you see them there. When a car starts to spin the tires, it will leave a fingerprint, and that was what caused the raw fuel to come out of the pipe and the engine to expire just before the finish line.
Alexis DeJoria advancing to the 2nd round again today. There's an amazing stat that I just heard that you have the lowest average ET for race day for the season so far. When you think about the performance that your guys have been able to give you, what do you do with it as the driver?
Oh man, they give me such a good car. Our splits right now are incredible. We're at the top of the board. We're back, man. Back at sea level, running 80s. That last run was nice and smooth. We just wanted to get a good number down there, and the butterflies are back. First round, I always want to puke. So that's a good thing. I got those butterflies back, and I'm excited about race day. And last weekend was really rough, man. My favorite person in the world, my grandma, was in the hospital, so I was battling some stuff and trying too hard to cut lights and got caught on a couple red lights, so that's never a good idea. But we're excited about today. Got some great family and support out here with us, and going to that next round.
As she has done so many times before, and this is the big one of the first round. John Force, left-hand side of the drag strip. His peak coolant and antifreeze Chevrolet Camaro, and we are inside the Napa GR Supra of Ron Capps via our Toyota onboard camera mounted to Ron's helmet. Tony, this is a pick-up to a degree in the sense that overall we look at 115 meetings of these guys, 66 and 48 all time. But for the microcosm of this weekend, John Force has been scuffling his way through qualifying, and Ron Capps made the best run of his season.
Well, regardless, Brian, it's like 2 trains on the same track coming at one another, of course.
So the body will come down here for the Daniel Hood tune with Tim Fabrizi, Chevrolet Camaro of John Force. It is impossible to really size up the scope of this matchup. It's really only overshadowed or superseded by John Force and Cruz Pedregon in terms of the familiarity they have with each other. Dean Antonelli and John Medlin tune on this car. Everybody gets weary when they race John Force. You get more weary when it's the 115th time.
Well, you almost have to. I mean, he's going to feed off of Robert Height, his teammate's car. Let's take a look at the staging. We typically see John Forrest use quite a bit of that real estate on the starting line.
It's the second move. Watch the noses of the cars. How far do those tires roll in? Caps took a little bit of real estate, and John took himself some as well. They leave the starting line. John Forrest performing better than he did in qualifying, and it's Force in a massive upset on paper. 389.2. The car didn't go any better than 475 in qualifying. Caps goes 392.0 and 330 and has to be wondering what just happened out there.
That's why we talk and hype up the matchup. This is why you do not want to draw John Forrest, regardless of where he qualifies. You know what he's capable of. Ron Capps said it himself in his interview. He has plenty of talent over there. It was just a matter of putting it together, and they do not often make 3 runs and not able to figure it out on the 4th run. You can see that Ron Capps had a slight advantage on the starting line, but this is all about horsepower. Take a listen.
Clean as a whistle. You can't really complain about any of it other than the fact that the wrong wind light came on, at least in Ron Capps' opinion.
Well, there's 2 things that are likely happening. I mean, Ron Capps, they don't want to overpower the track. They know that the track itself, the surface, is increasing in temperature, but there's John Forrest just doing everything right in that first round matchup.
11th thou at the stripe at 332.
Next pair in funny car, it'll be Cruz Pedregon, number 6 qualifier, taking on Matt Hagan, only able to muster the number 11 spot, a guy who has averaged a 3rd qualifying spot of throughout the entire season. For Hagan, the question this morning was, what's going on with the team? What are the struggles have been? He said basically they've been trying to be too cautious. They smoked the tires and they've been beating themselves up about it during eliminations a week ago. So what they've been trying to do is pull the car back. Well, they've gone too far the other way. They said, you know what? We're an aggressive team. We've got aggressive conditions, and that is exactly how we're going to play this first round.
The diehard batteries, Advanced Auto Parts, Dodge. As we look at the Snap-on franchise machine, crew chief John Collins. Cruz is in a win-at-all-cost mode. That may help him here.
Well, they need to win for a lot of reasons. They want to get up in the points. They don't want to let one get away. They are the better qualified car, but like Ron Capps, they have a tough opponent.
And Cruz Pedregon is driving away from Matt Hagan. 391.1, 328.7 miles an hour as Hagan's car musters a lackluster for the conditions. 393.9 and 330. We thought all the world that those guys are going to come in here with these crazy conditions and blow the fences down, but it's Cruz Pedregon out muscling him.
Well, Cruz and the Snap-on team doing about what they did in qualifying, and that was plenty to dispatch the Matt Hagan run. It just seemed like this car was on sport mode, maybe valet mode. For Cruz in the Dodge as well, and on track mode.
Didn't have the red key in the Hellcat, is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's right.
The hatch is open for Cruz Pedregon, and this is the type of small breeze in the sails of this team that they have been needing. And Cruz in 037 light, he was out of there in a hurry when the tree flashed. When we come back, the Nitro Funny Car Madness continues in Sonoma, California.
The Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Lucas Oil, the world leader in high-performance lubricants and problem-solving additives.
Another peek at Lombard Street in San Francisco, the curviest road in the world, via the fine folks at the Guinness Book of World Records. Here's our funny car ladder presented to us by Lucas Oil. We can see the cars that have advanced, and one pairing has been created with the Lexus taking on Cruz in round number 2. It will be Blake Alexander and Steve Densham. Now, Blake Alexander's car was under a bit of duress here as it was having a bit of a struggle to get back. Now, he got the reverser engaged. Now, there is confusion happening here as he's now got that thing in forward gear, clutches in. Crew has lifted the body. Jim Head, his normal calm self, looking things over.
I can tell you what was happening there, Brian. The owner wanted the body up. Now, the crew member that's responsible for that, he wanted to see that car get put in forward gear before he got in front of it.
So a heads-up play by the crew member. And this is Steve Densham, son of the great Gary Densham, the Midwest Factory Finishes Nitro Funny Car of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Steve has been a star also in the world of nostalgia nitro drag racing. His father, one of the legacy funny car racers of all time, has raced through the decades. We've not seen the last of Gary Densham yet. But his son Steve is a capable wheelman. Blake Alexander, the better qualified car, the Pronto Auto Service machine. And Blake goes a 397.7 at 325 miles an hour. Steve Densham hung on his bumper, a 408.4 at 300. A nice side-by-side race. Alexander advances.
Well, good launch for both of these drivers, both these cars. A very respectable run for the Gary Densham, Steven Densham driven car, but on target for Blake Alexander. A little conservative, but what they want to do is get to the finish line ahead of their opponent so they can advance into round 2.
Moments ago, Jamie Howe got up with John Force after a big first-round win against Ron Capps.
They always say we don't race him on paper for a reason. He came in as the number 15 qualifier. John Force now debriefing with Robert Hight. When you're able to run your best run of the weekend in the first round of eliminations after struggling in qualifying, what was the message to your team like as their leader?
Well, that wasn't Robert Hight. That was Ron Capps congratulating me. That shows you the class act that he is, and bad as he wants to win. And I got to start doing my job. I got to get better on that tree. I'm trying everything, and I can't get there. Danny, we had problems. We were fast up there at Denver, but we're dropping holes and different stuff, and the driver ain't helping either. But no one knows this game better than John Force, and nobody loves it more than I do. And I got to keep fighting and fighting to stay in this game with these kids, because these kids are really good, and I want to be here with them for a while.
Savvy fans will note that John Force, in his many different shades of interviews, there is a point where he reaches of intensity. Those are the days to really pay attention to him. You heard it in his voice there. John Force is locked in. Tim Wilkerson, the Summit Racing Equipment onboard camera here inside the Levi, Ray, and Schaub Mustang. He will be taking on the DHL GR Supra of Mr. J.R. Todd, the Coletta Motorsports team.
Well, you've got to look at Tim Wilkerson. He is preparing himself. He's got one hand on the steering wheel. He's going to inch this car into stage with the brake handle, with brake pressure. He's going to reach over and turn all of the pumps on that give the car all the fuel volume it's going to need as he goes wide open throttle.
The number 7 and 10 qualifiers here. Todd ran a best of 399 in the Supra. Wilkerson a 10th quicker on the qualifying sheet, which is a country mile in the world of nitro drag racing. J.R. Todd owning the starting line. Wilkerson smokes the tires, and J.R. picks up a round win at 399.9, 324 miles an hour. The driver absolutely delivered there. An 076 light put him at least 300s ahead of Tim on the step.
Again, about a 10th off of some of the quicker cars. Not very shiny, but very effective. And you can see Tim Wilkerson, who was the favorite coming into this race, start to lose traction, breaking the tires loose. You can see the raw fuel come out. You can see him off of those throttle blades. They close, they cut the air off. No longer air going into the engine. He can only sit and watch the DHL car streak away.
Jamie's with Cruz Pedregon.
Cruz Pedregon advancing on to the second round where he will face off against Alexis DeJoria, but it comes on the back of taking out Matt Hagan. He led the points. He's been seemingly unstoppable this season. You got him though. How did that work out?
Well, you know, racing Matt, you got to bring it. You know, he's like racing Superman. That guy's got muscles everywhere, but that's probably the best driver crew chief comp with Dickie and Matt. They're probably the two of the best. If they're not, they're at the top. So, you know, we were up for it. Snap-on franchisee body. We're only running it a few races out here. This is for all the franchisees out there, Snap-on. And but we'll let JC and those guys figure out what to do to the car. I'm just happy that we're going rounds.
Win lights cure all ills as the McLeod clutches Dodge of Paul Lee has the body lowered down by Dustin Heim. Co-crew chiefs this car with Jason Bunker. Paul Lee, a Californian, Bunker, a Northern Californian who knows this track well and is tuned on Tony Gerardo's car to some degree of success. And the Lescure Dodge, the complete mechanical services machine of Jim Dunn Racing, as Big Jim steps to the back of the automobile. His driver, Jim Campbell, vying for a round win here in Sonoma. One-round win between both of these cars for the entire season at this point, and they're going to make a game of it, but Lee is going to smoke the tires, and it will be Campbell. 4.004, 317.87 miles an hour. A work-a-day elapsed time, but a win light nonetheless.
Well, it's really starting to pay off for Jim Dunn and his tuning ability, his consistency. Again, not one of the quicker runs, but very effective. And we've seen this car start to perform and be more consistent over the last several races. Of course, Paul Lee just not the consistency yet that they've been looking for.
And in a shocking twist, Jim Campbell has lane choice over Robert Hight in lane number 2. Don't adjust your sets, folks. Bob Tasker the third, Blake Alexander, John Force, and J.R. Todd. That one's always interesting to watch. And Alexis DeJoria will take on Cruz Pedregon. When we come back, we'll park the nitromethane for gasoline. It is Pro Stock Eliminator round 1. We'll be banging through 5 speeds at 10,000 RPM, and Matt Hartford will attempt another win. This is Matt Hartford upon securing victory at the Mile High Nationals. Tony celebrating with his crew at the top end. Is there a better feeling in the world than this?
No, there really isn't, especially after the dry spell that this team has seen, and no better place to do it than on the mountain.
Andy Granacci is crew chief, hoisting the Wally alongside Matt. And then yelling at the mountain. Let's talk more about Pro Stock.
Well, in excess of 210 miles per hour in a quarter mile with a big block Chevy engine, aluminum cylinder heads, electronic fuel injection. Now you put 10W30 oil in your passenger car, Pro Stock, a zero-weight engine oil to help utilize all of the close to 1,500 horsepower. Quarter mile performance in 6.5 seconds on a high-performance racing grass. Gas in the driver compartment in the same location as the car sitting in your driveway.
The victory for Matt Hartford last weekend in Denver was the 5th of his career. This is a guy who's been at it for a long time, but he does consistently rack up at least one a year, Tony, and he's been like you could set your watch to it. This time he did it on the mountain.
Yeah, and things clicked for Matt Hartford. He's so good off the starting line when he is on his game, and when you put a car underneath him, well, the end result is usually late on Sunday.
That Total Seal piston rings machine has been good. It was great on the hill as he greeted his fans at the starting line celebrating after the win. We mentioned being able to set your watch to a Matt Hartford win. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. A 2-win season would be a huge deal for this guy, and he is chasing it today.
Matt Hartford conquered the mountain a week ago in Denver. It was a much-needed shot in the arm for the team that had been struggling earlier this year. Matt, you've got a good car here this weekend, qualified the middle of the field, but the whole field separated by 8/100ths of a second. What do you have to do to bring home the Wally this weekend?
Yeah, qualifying, we've been a mid-pack car. You know, that's obvious on paper. I don't think we can go out there and run with some of the top cars on ET. So if I'm going to win today, I'm going to have to use this thing right down here, that left leg. It's been good at times. It's been bad at times. So we're hoping that against Mason we can make it good. You know, they're coming for us. They lost us second round last week, but the Total Seal CIP1 Rottler car, it's going through first round for sure.
Confidence and a smile. They made it to the racetrack, and that is the biggest hurdle they have faced so far as we look at the competition ladder. And we can see Dallas Glenn and Camry Caruso, the 5 and 12 qualifiers. Aaron Stanfield and Derek Kramer, that's a big one. And, of course, on the right side, you can see Steve Graham, the local racer from San Francisco, will take on the legend Greg Anderson. And so we are talking Pro Stock round number 1, and it was Matt Hartford, the Rottler Total Seal piston rings, Rob's hose connection, Camaro completing the burnout, still riding that emotional high from just a week ago, an emotional high that was nearly crushed, and we tie that into this race with this week's Dodge Tales from the Strip. This is Jerry Caminito in Brooklyn, New York, the Blue Thunder Nitro funny car. Towed the thing all the way west, and he blew the motor up in his tow truck. He was dragging this thing around with a dually. And you can see Steve Evans here revealing the short block, or rather the long block of the tow truck that was sitting in there. Well, Hartford, his tow rig blew up in Denver, and he barely made it with the help of B. Gaines. The more things change, the more they stay the same in drag racing. They got here, and now it is time for Hartford to take on Mason McGahey. And McGahey leaves on Hartford's cars out of the groove. Tony, there will be no sweep of the Western Swing this year. Matt Hartford's done in the first round.
And the story ends early for Matt Hartford. So consistent he was in qualifying, almost all of his runs within about 100th of a second.
A tough break for Hartford, but for Mason McGahey, it's more of the same. A good reaction time. We watch Hartford's car rattled the tires and moved itself to the right side. And discretion being the better part of valor, Matt Hartford shoved the clutch pedal in. Now it's Chris McGahey. Mason's dad trying to take down Bo Butner, the Johnson's horsepower garage Camaro. Butner stands up and delivers with a 32 reaction time to McGahey's 63. And our JHG Vision roof cam up there goes 672.2. Clutch in again at 179 miles an hour. He threw that clutch in early in qualifying as well. Christian Quadra, the Corral Boots Mustang, lining up next to Pennsylvania's own Kyle Koretsky, the Lucas Oil Camaro, and the Quadra family red light curse continues.
Yeah, 001, but on the negative side, and that's an automatic disqualification. That is a shame because for Christian Quadra, he actually outran Kyle Koretsky on the racetrack by 100th of a second.
Koretsky's crew chief Dave Connolly looks on. Camry Caruso, the Tequila Commissario Camaro, and Dallas Glenn, the Rad Torque Systems machine. They both took a good chunk out of the tree, with Glenn hitting the tree for a 13. That is his hallmark. Camry was not far behind him in the lead, but she was behind him at the finish line. Dallas Glenn, 654.4, beats a squeaker, 654.7. Glenn will advance on to round number 2. This is another guy, Tony, that's really starting to get his footing back as we look at our Lucas Oil finish line camera.
Yeah, Dallas, he's always on his mark on the starting line. Just the car has seemed to have fallen off. Of course, Greg Anderson picking up the pace as well as his teammate Dallas.
The Stanfield-Kramer connection here, E3 side for Stanfield. Kramer on the Toyota side, and that got biofuel Chevrolet. And Aaron Stanfield, who has been all of a match for Eric Anders this year, moves on to round 2. 6:52.2 at 2:10. Kramer 6:54.4 at 2:08, and it should be no surprise that we see Stanfield going rounds because it was the final round last year where he downed Dallas Glenn.
Yeah, we see Aaron in a lot of these final rounds. Unfortunately for him, he's lost a lot of them to his teammate Eric Anders, but so has a lot of the rest of the field.
The Elite Motorsports Group had plenty to celebrate on that day, and so far in round 1, it's looking pretty good for him as well. It was about 3/4 of a Camaro length at speed for the soft-spoken, but swinging a big stick, Aaron Stanfield. Troy Coughlin Jr., who has had his best qualifying effort of the season in the Jakes.com Camaro, and Fernando Quadra Sr. in the Quadra Boots Mustang. Unfortunately for Fernando Sr., an 87 lighted Pro Stock, unless I'm in the other lane, is not going to get you a round win.
What a great looking car. It's a Mustang body, but for Troy Coughlin Jr., a lot like Bo Butner, within that same team, two drivers that seem to be getting some of their traction back.
And Troy Coughlin historically has won in basically every category he's ever driven. The most wins in Pro Stock among active drivers. Greg Anderson has 6, Aaron Stanfield 1, and Chris McGahey 1. Anderson has played the kind of Robert Height role at this track. Steve Graham, the VitaCShot.com Camaro, based out of San Francisco, took the weekend off for his machinist job at the airport. And Greg Anderson, the HendrickCars.com Summit Racing Equipment Denso Camaro. And this is looking a little sporty here, Tony. Anderson had a nice solid 33 light, but that 654.0 tells me he's got horsepower as well.
There's a couple of things happening with Greg Anderson. He's starting to pick the pace up, and also starting to pick it up on the starting line. The slump could be over, still looking for that 100th win.
Here the car clipping that rev limiter just before the finish line stripe, as they set it up to do at 10,500 RPM. Fernando Quadra Jr. and Erica Enders, the Melling Performance Camaro for Enders, the Corral Boots Mustang for Quadra Jr. And it's another Quadra family red light.
Yeah, of course, the tables were turned 1 week ago. I'm sure that was something on the mind of Erica. An 0.11 near perfect reaction time. I don't know if anyone was going to beat that kind of performance on the track.
Ultimate sign of respect from Erica. When she's 11 next to you, she knows she has to be. Here's our Pro Stock ladder presented by Lucas Oil for round 2. Enders, McGahey, Stanfield and Glenn, Anderson and Butner, and it will be Troy Coughlin Jr. and Kyle Koretsky. So now we talk about Dallas Glenn in that first round. Jamie Howe caught up with him after his round win.
For the first time in now 3 race days, Dallas Glenn is advancing out of the first round of eliminations. You got out of the car and you said that one felt good. What role does that play in the performance that this team has?
Whenever you're feeling good in the car, it definitely plays. And just do everything smoother, everything you think less. You just kind of just naturally do things. So we got a really good car right now. I feel like I'm driving really good. I'm hitting all my shifts. You know, Denver can kind of throw a little wacky thing into your timing, but we're running good, and just want to go out there and do the best I can for everybody at RAD and Summit.
Puts high expectations on himself, and so far he is living up to them. Denso has stepped up big this week in all kinds of great fan interactive games, including a kind of celebrity version of Cornhole. Matt and Angie Smith took on some fans. They teamed up for great prize packs and swag, but the Denso display has been very active all weekend long. And how about that? Nothing but net. When we come back, Pro Stock motorcycle action.
And when you talk Pro Stock motorcycle, you're talking diversity, a variety of bikes and engines that include the V-twin, the 2-cylinder that compete with the popular Suzuki 4-cylinder. Most have equipped their bikes with electronic fuel injection, but carburetors are still an option. Rear wheelie bar to help balance the high RPM launches, and like their cousin Pro Stock car, bikes burn a high octane racing gas.
You know, Tony, you can't burn as much of that high octane racing gas in the mountain. Matt Smith went up to Denver and showed everybody he could burn more of it than anyone else. He becomes the first rider to run quicker than 710, going 709. He goes 190 miles an hour to become the first rider to do that on the mountain. He ran up to the stage at the end of the race with a Wally over his head, and the NHRA tech department was waiting there with a letter at the bottom of the steps. Bruno Massel's with him now.
Just 7 days ago, Matt Smith dominated atop the mountain, so much so that some rule changes, they ensued. And this week, the end result is you hopped off the Buell and you were on a Suzuki. Why did you make the swap, Matt?
Suzuki definitely has the advantage at sea-level tracks, and that's why I brought it out. I mean, clearly it showed that Angel set the record here at this racetrack, just like I did at Denver last week. So obviously there should be a rule change for the following race, so we'll see what happens.
Oh boy, a racer through and through, just like his dad. Angel Sampey had a great Norwalk, Ohio race. She beat Joey Gladstone in the final round under Vance and Hines Mission Foods Suzuki. Joey Gladstone, who's been making frequent final round appearances, just didn't have quite enough motorcycle. Well, when she got to the Mile High Nationals, things didn't go quite her way. But coming back here to Sonoma, Tony, things are going very much her way, the #1 qualifier.
Well, they have the power. Vanson Hines is such a powerhouse. And now that Angel has tasted victory this year, they now have the momentum and they have the performance along with the track record.
Jamie Howe is caught up with Angel Sampey, who is vying for the points lead this weekend.
Over the course of the last 3 races, Angel Sampey and this Vanson Hines teams have been to the semis or better, including a win back in Norwalk. We're now back at sea level, and Angel came out as the #1 qualifier. What momentum is this team carrying right now?
You know, they have the momentum they've always had. I just had to pick it up and join them, and I think I'm doing that. I'm really proud of the way I rode yesterday. I'm getting used to this motorcycle really quickly now. It took a while last year, but I got it now. I'm loving my Suzuki. I'm having such a good time. I'm feeling relaxed, but I have the team I need. I have the motorcycle I need. I'm just going to keep it all together. That's always the goal. Keep it together, go one round at a time, and we'll see what happens at the end of the day.
Her smile is big. Let's look at our first round key matchups here. Matt Smith and Ryan Ayler. Steve Johnson, who is foundering as of late, his points lead shaking, taking on Scott Botterop. Then it will be Angie Smith and Jerry Savoy. Joey Gladstone will take on Gianna Evaristo. And those are the biggest matchups in round 1 of Pro Stock Motorcycle. And let's talk about this week's Peak Did You Know? Some really juicy tidbits in here. This is the 3rd time 3 women have qualified #1 in a pro category at the same event. 2019 and 2021 in Reading was the other 2 times. This is the quickest pro stock field since the switch to fuel injection with a 658.5 bump spot, and there have now been 35 200-mile-an-hour runs, more than that now. And this track is second only to Charlotte with 38 of those runs, and by the time we get done, Sonoma will be the quickest track per capita, if you will, in pro stock motorcycle history. We now move into our first round elimination action here in pro stock motorcycles. Jerry Savoy, the White Alligator Racing team, on the starting line. Tim Kalungi and the crew chief getting ready to heat the tire. This week's Suzuki Science of Speed. We're going to catch up with Tim Kalungi and talk to him about going fast near sea level.
Here with Tim Kalungi and crew chief for Jerry Savoy to talk about changes on a pro stock motorcycle going from the worst conditions in Denver to the best here in Sonoma. And it all starts there with the sprocket.
Yeah, each racetrack presents its own puzzle to figure out. Denver's a little different than the rest. So starting with gear ratio, you know, we don't make the power or torque we do in Denver that we do at other venues. So we have to replace that somehow. So we trick the engine by thinking it's got more torque, because gear ratio is just a torque multiplier. So we stack on a bunch of gear ratio, right? So anywhere from 10 to 15% more ratio in Denver than we do other places. Second thing is clutch. Without the power, you know, we don't need as much plate load. So we make a lot of changes to our clutch to lighten it up a little bit so it slips during the run, okay? And the third thing is fuel. So without the atmospheric pressure, you really don't need the amount of fuel that we run at sea level racetracks. So we make some changes to our fuel system and how we deliver fuel to the engine.
So here in Sonoma, you're giving it everything it's got.
We got it all in there.
And now we pick the run up here, Angie Smith and Jerry Savoy. To this point in the season, Jerry Savoy's been 2-0 against Angie Smith, and with a 200s advantage out of the starting line, he's trying to make it 3-0, Tony. And it looks like it's going to happen. It's a whole shot victory for Savoy. 678 beats a 677.6.
Well, he made it stick. It was a little bit of a high-speed wobble well after he crossed the finish line, but she outqualified him by 0.05 of a second.
The Denso on board with Angie Smith. She tucks down. And she tucks down and goes quickly. In fact, quicker than Savoy, but she let him out of the blocks first, and that was the biggest problem. So Angie Smith sits up on her bike. We look at the Camping World whole shot top end photo and see it's about a half a Suzuki length ahead of the Denso bike. Now it is Karen Stouffer. Line up next to Katie Sullivan. They leave the starting line. Katie Justice picks up 0.04 of a second. What has happened to Karen Stouffer's performance on the starting line? Justice doesn't care. She's glad it's gone because the 681.4 just beat a 682.8.
Well, she outperformed her on the racetrack, but that 0.04 of a second jump made a big difference.
Eddie Krawick and Kelly Klontz side by side. The pair of 4-cylinder Suzukis. The Vanson Hines bike for Krawick at 0.59 light, effectively having the reaction time of Kelly Klontz. And Eddie makes it to the finish line by a decent margin, 677.2 and 200.56. Klontz a quick 684.7, but the starting line disadvantage was too much to overcome. The Denso machine of Matt Smith, two of the more vibrant looking bikes, and it's Ryan Ayler nearest to us.
And Naylor's doing his best, but his best is just not going to be quick enough.
Well, he had 200s on the starting line, but Matt Smith, as well as he qualified, as well as his bike has performed, he has to play it safe, a little conservative on the starting line.
Now it is time for Steve Johnson, and Johnson knows that everybody's here coming for him. They're all coming for him. They're coming for that points lead. Scott Botteroff leaves the starting line in a respectful manner against Johnson. He just gave him a ton of leash out there. Johnson was quick with a 36 light. He goes 675, 8 at 199. Performance-wise, keeping pace with the rest of the field. Botteroff goes a 695, 3. Gianna Evaristo, the Scrappers team, daughter of Mike Salinas and Joey Gladstone. Gladstone solid with a 40 light. Gianna not too late with a 63. But that 200s he got on the starting line will be expanded. A 674.7 and 201.40 for Gladstone. The kid is a win waiting to happen, I promise you.
Well, coming in as the number 3 qualifier, he is up near the top.
And it's Angel Sampey and Lance Bonham here side by side. Bonham suffered major problems on the starting line. The clutch engagement seemed highly delayed. And Angel was long gone and hard to find by the time he got rolling. 675.2 and 201.19. Let's take a ride with Angel, the Vance & Hines Mission Food Suzuki. Brought to us with our Suzuki onboard camera. She clipped the rev limiter early in that run, Tony.
Yeah, that may have allowed the bike to run a little bit quicker had she been able to hit that shift point right spot on in that first gear.
She will take that win line as we look at our round 2 ladder in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Angel will have a bye. It'll be Matt Smith and Eddie Krawick. It'll be Steve Johnson and Jerry Savoie. And it will be Katie Justice and Joey Gladstone. And let's talk to Katie Justice with Amanda, rather with Jamie Howe.
Katie Sullivan, now Katie Justice, advances on to the second round for the first time since returning to racing after becoming a mom. These big life changes for you. How does it change the way that you come into these situations?
I just can't even believe that we're here, first of all. But after becoming a mom, you know, that's a really big deal in my life. And I got to bring my baby girl out here. So to get a first round win for her, that's the coolest.
A lot of work, and we can see that work being done right now in Jim Campbell's pit area. The Lescure company-sponsored Nitro Funny Car, the blower, being removed from the top of the engine. The service well underway, and everybody is doing their jobs in a composed manner. It will be Robert Hyde and Jim Campbell in round 2, and I can't really say this enough. Jim Campbell will have lane choice in the second round against that machine. Drivers who had lane choice, how about drivers who had wine choice? This week, the folks at 3 Fat Guys Winery invited some stars of NHRA drag racing for a day of blending and sipping their wine.
Hey everybody, I'm Tony, one of the 3 Fat Guys.
And I'm Jim, I'm the winemaker for 3 Fat Guys.
So today we got a really fun surprise for a handful of the drivers that are coming into town. We're gonna put them through a test to see if they have some winemaking skills, and then we're gonna judge them after.
And we're gonna give them a run for their money.
I need some vanilla beans to clear my palate.
I really didn't know what to think. When we came here and they're telling us that we're gonna mix up some wine, I thought, oh, I got this. And then I realized that I only like to drink the wine that I didn't mix.
Yeah, I was terrified. They all drink more than I do. And Ron is an avid wine guy.
I know what matters, and I know the winemaker told me on the side that mine was the best.
A comment that I like to always make to people is that there's a million ways to make wine, and most of those are a bad way to do it. Unfortunately, all 5 of them fit in that category.
Whatever we did clearly was not good.
I chose my blend pretty quickly.
I kept it simple, and I won. And they said it's going to be top 5 Costco brands.
I got runner-up, so that's not too bad. I was looking for something smooth, not too light. I like stuff that's heavy. Deep, strong cab base is what I like. I like the earth tones. Oh, that's me. Thick, robust, almonds and leather and oak mixed together. That's what I like in the deep, dark chocolate. You know what I mean? That's what I am, baby.
They need to stick to driving.
I thought it was the winning blend, personally.
Honestly, they did a great job.
They did a fantastic job.
You know, it made it a lot of fun.
It was a ton of fun.
This is what brings the mojo, I think, having fun before you start putting the helmet on.
A great experience had by all. And the Speedway Children's Charity Auctions.com website, you can bid on these bottles. They have custom labels. They're autographed by our drivers. The bidding begins at $150 per bottle. The auction runs from July 23rd and closes on July 31st at 12 p.m. Pacific time. A great, great keepsake if you love NHRA drag racing. Next week, we move 755 miles north to the flavor-packed NHRA Northwest Nationals. Our qualifying coverage begins July 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern on FS1. It rounds out Sunday, July 31st at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. And our final round elimination coverage from the first running of the Northwest Nationals since 2019 will be right back here on Fox at 4 p.m. Eastern. Take a quick peek back at the NHRA Dodge Power Brokers Mile High Nationals, the Summit Racing Equipment Junior Dragster League National Shootout final round. Taylor McGregor and Andy Risner went down the racetrack. McGregor from Littleton, Colorado was 0.56 on the tree. Andy Risner put on a good race. Longmont, Colorado-based competitor at Bandimere Speedway. But it would be the day of Taylor McGregor. Mom and Dad were excited. 8:10 with a 6 was quicker than a 7:91, or better than a 7:91.7 because of a huge starting line advantage. And we have a massive display of junior dragsters here at Sonoma Raceway. The Summit Racing Equipment Junior Dragster League is the place where the seeds of drag racing success in the future have been planted. Mike Salinas is a big supporter of the program. So many of these racers will move up in the ranks and become pros, like the likes of Sean Langdon and Leah Pruitt. We'll be back with more Nitro. And we are back here at Sonoma Raceway. We get a look here at Total Seal Nitro School happening this weekend. Ron Douglas, crew chief for Josh Hart's R&L Carriers Top Fueler, stepped up and was the lead educator of Nitro School. This is a great thing when you come to an NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series event. It's a way for you to learn the ins and outs of running and tuning a nitro-powered engine or race car. A lot of great information. It's a Q&A session. Really spectacular. Arcane and key storylines. Brittany Force sets the track ET mile-an-hour record in round 1. John Force upset Ron Capps in their 115th career matchup, and all 3 number 1 female qualifiers advanced to round number 2. Speaking of female qualifiers in number 1 positions, Leah Pruitt will take on Sean Langdon this round in Top Fuel. It'll be Steve Torrance and Brittany Force, Doug Coletta, Josh Hart, and Mike Salinas will take on Justin Ashley. And the first pair out will be Leah Pruitt and Sean Langdon, 2 of the more vibrant cars on the property. Langdon, the CMR Roofing and Construction Machine left side, and the Race for Dean Foundation on the right side. That is the charity that is being supported by Tony Stewart Racing this weekend. And let's talk more about Sean Langdon.
Ryan talked to Kurt Elliott a few moments ago about his strategy here in this second round eliminations. Leah Pruitt had the better car at their qualifying, no doubt, and she was quicker in the first round. I asked him if they start to press, they need to here, and he said, we're rolling it up the same way we sent it the last one to 74. We've had that strategy as of late is to try and be consistent and give our driver a shot. We've gone a lot of rounds. I'm not changing it here.
There is some personal history between these two, and Sean Langdon will do what he thinks he needs to do in the starting line to gain an advantage.
Both the cars are now pre-staged. Let's see him roll into stage.
Langdon out of the blocks first with an 0.49 reaction time, and he wins 373.4, 330 miles an hour. This was a rematch of the final round 1 week ago where Leah Pruitt ran it uncontested. Sean Langdon had he had a bill to pay, and he just paid it.
Well, that's no big surprise. We know the rivalry between these two drivers. We know the history. But Sean Langdon off of the starting line at 0.49, that's a range that a good driver, the best drivers like Sean Langdon live in. Not a bad reaction time, but that early lead really held. He was quicker on the racetrack. You could see him get the jump off the starting line in every increment. Now the temperature has increased, the track temperature, the grip has gone away. However, both of these cars were able to maintain traction throughout the run.
A very, very good run there for Sean Langdon and team as we see David Grubke now in the starting line with a flavor-packed Top Fuel driver. Dragster, his driver Brittany Force in the cockpit of that car, facing down Steve Torrance. We talk about these intense matchups. It gets very intense here. One, because Brittany wants to maintain pace with Mike Salinas, who's behind her in the staging lanes. And we have Steve Torrance, of course, vying to continue round wins over the course of the season. Bruno has more on Steve.
Talking to Bobby Lagana about the setup here, he said that the 68 doesn't think he's going to be enough. He knows the track has gone away a little bit, but they never like to get outrun. It's a team that likes to press and they like to push. He said right now parts and pieces look good. As long as the car will fight, they think they can dip down and knock off a 100th or 2 in terms of the elapsed time.
We will find out how it all plays out as both machines now creep ahead. Steve Torrance out first, but look at Brittany make the move at the big end. 366.3.
3:36.49. Good gravy. That is a new track speed record here at Sonoma Raceway. It just doesn't stop with these guys.
Brian, the humanity, and it was Steve Torrence that got the early jump. He needed every bit of it. But this is a good read. What Bruno just talked about on the racetrack, I'm thinking, hey, things have warmed up. Some of the grip has gone on the racetrack. I really couldn't see how they could repeat the performance from the first round. However, that's confidence. That's a skill set from David Grubnick. The early lead for Steve Torrence, but Brittany was able to out-horsepower him at the finish line.
And Sean Langdon just realized that he will be facing off against Brittany Force in the semifinals. But that was a big round win for you. You were the only bottom half driver to win the first round, now took out the #1 qualifier. As a driver, what do these big moments mean?
No, it means a lot. We just need an opportunity on race day, and that's one thing that Jason and Kurt and Connie and the whole CMR DHL Toyota team's done lately is giving me a car on race day. Obviously, that round right there, I felt like that was a rematch of the final round last week in Denver. We felt like that race was ours, but that's not to take anything away from their team. They did a great job. That was a good race right there. Leah came over after the round and congratulated me, and it is what it is. It was a great race, and we're excited to get to the semis.
It's Ashley and Salinas off the starting line, and it's Mike Salinas moving on. 3:07.01, 3:34.98. He's not quite as fast as Brittany, but my goodness, he is fast. 3:93.7, 2:46 for Ashley.
Look, Mike Salinas, he's been as solid as they come. They didn't do very well in their very first qualifying session, but got it together. Justin Ashley made the best run, but again, we talk about those black tracks. We can see Justin Ashley in the other lane fishtailing, leaving those black tracks, meaning he was slipping the tire.
Right, get a look on the racetrack, Tony. Wild.
Yeah, this is the pattern we're looking at. This means that cars are breaking the tires loose, and they're leaving that fingerprint directly behind the race car.
On the starting line is Josh Hart, the R&O Carriers top fuel dragster. We saw his crew chief, Ron Douglas, teaching Nitro School this week. And Doug Coletta across the racetrack and the Mac Tools top fueler. Neither of these guys are probably the lead men at a pep rally. Okay, these are not loud, outspoken guys. When you put them in a race car, they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Well, one you can put in a phone booth. He's going to open his shirt. It's going to have a big S on it. And that is Doug Coletta. And right now, along with Sean Langdon, they seem to be performing quite a bit better.
Doug Coletta, how about you? 3:72.8, 3:32.02, 3:78.1, and 3:26. This is a spectacular round of top fuel drag racing.
Well, while he's been around for a long time, we'd like to introduce you to Doug Coletta. He has been racing for a long time, and it does appear that he finally has a car underneath him. This is the setup. This is the tune-up that this team, the new crew chief for this team, has been working on since the outset of the year, and it's starting to provide results.
Tony, this is a shocking statement. This is the first time since April of 2021 that Doug Coletta has advanced past the second round. Shut the jet off, Connie. We ain't leaving yet. He climbs up the top of the dragster. Langdon will take on Forrest. Coletta will take on Salinas, and the opportunity exists for an all-Coletta final round. But Coletta-Salinas is going to be a big one. Now let's go to the top end. Jamie Howe is with local favorite Mike Salinas.
And Mike Salinas had a solid, steady run. He will have lane choice over Doug Coletta in the semis, but it was your light that you were concerned about when you took your helmet off. It was a 74 at the tree. Going up against Doug Coletta, how do you improve?
Go up there, do my thing, make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. That one, I was a little lazy on it, so pick it up on the next one. Pleasanton Ready Mix, going to the next round. Happy up, boys. Thank you.
He is the local favorite, and he is winning the first rounds of his career at this racetrack. He was snake bitten previously. The Sealmaster Track Walk, we unleashed a lot of Sonoma Nationals fans this morning onto the race course here at Sonoma Raceway. Kids, adults, everybody except those wearing flip-flops had a grand old time of it, getting a drag strip's eye view of the competition. When we come back, Nitro Funny Cars are on the drag strip. We are back, and the NHRA Launch Program is a place where drag racing careers are getting started, and not just in the pits here at national events, all across the drag racing spectrum, from local racetracks to administrative opportunities and more. John Force Racing recently hired new employees through Launch, and they are continuing to use that service, as are so many of our teams. If you want a career in drag racing, NHRALaunch.com. Alexis DeJoria, Bandero Premium Tequila Rocket Phones, Cruz Pedregon coming in, the Snap-on franchise machine.
Well, right now, these cars are almost evenly matched, only 100th of a second in terms of performance on the racetrack.
Cruz Pedregon, 0.33 lap, but the car puts holes out. Alexis DeJoria, 3.905, 330.8 miles an hour. They march on to the next round. This is the hallmark of this team. You know the car is going to the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, like he did with Matt Hagan, Cruz Pedregon got the early jump. Take a look at the starting line advantage. That is near 7 thousandths of a second. However, fortunately for Alexis, she was able to keep that car, keep the traction, the downforce there. You can see the snap-on car with the early lead, but started to pull the tires loose early in the run.
So DeJoria advances, will take on either Force or Todd. We have Height and Campbell to come, and also Tasca and Alexander.
Next pair in funny car, it is Bob Tasca III, the number 4 qualifier, taking on Blake Alexander, qualified the number 5 spot. Talking with Blake about this matchup, he said, while we qualified within 100 or within a spot of him on race day today, we were a 10th behind. It's not going to work. We went 89 in qualifying and tried to hop it up, and it's gone in the opposite direction. So the goal right now is to put in that Q1 qualifying tune-up in the car and hope it sticks, because Bob Tasca's had a really good car the last 2 runs. Back-to-back 87s, it's going to be tough to beat.
Bruno and Will, and we're going to find out. And typically when we talk about Blake Alexander and Jim Head's car, when they get into a mode of pressing is where we typically see that car smoke the tires. We'll see if they can weave their way down the racetrack.
Yeah, we're talking about an increase on the racetrack. It's now 118 degrees, and it's still overall good, but I'm sure a lot of these teams, a lot of the tuners have had to make some adjustments and slow the clutch down.
Blake Alexander stepping up big time on the starting line, and at the finish line stripe it will be Tasca, another 87. 387.5, 329, matching a lapse time to the thou. We got bracket races out here in Super Cup that can't do that.
Well, Blake Alexander made this race a little bit closer than it should have been by that jump off of the starting line. But Bob Tasca, I mean, we're looking at 387s in a row, 329 miles an hour on a close to 120-degree track. This is the most impressive car that we've seen on this day.
After one of the greatest games in recent memory, the MLB returns to the place where dreams come true. Relive the magic when the Reds take on the Cubs for one game in heaven. One game at the Field of Dreams, August 11th on Fox. J.R. Todd may have one time considered as a child his Field of Dreams would be a drag strip sitting next to John Force. He gets a little more taciturn when we talk about it in the adult sense, though.
Be careful what you wish for. And, you know, really, John Force deserves a lot more credit than he gives himself. He always says he's trying to compete against these younger guys. John Force gets in this car, runs the risk. This isn't the safest occupation, yes. And right now, he is the heavy favorite in this matchup.
And I stand by my intensity comment earlier. When John gets in a locked-in mode, which he seems to be in, he becomes very difficult to beat, and he becomes even more cagey. Pay very close attention to John Force's side of the screen. How far does he stuff that funny car in? Is he conscious of the fact that J.R. Todd is statistically the best reaction time lever in Nitro funny car drag racing? Oh, yes, he is. The Thunder is John Force's 393.2, 330 miles an hour, outrunning a 395.8 at 326. A game effort, and John Force outstaged that thing with the headers. It doesn't matter. He got the job done.
Well, when you look at the reaction times, the numbers look good, but what John Force did is what he has done so many times. Now, he uses some of that real estate. It's no different than a road course racer just cutting that apex, cheating the real estate a little bit, and John Force does exactly that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It gives him a mental edge. It shortens the racetrack for him, but he really just outpowered J.R. Todd in this matchup.
And for J.R. Todd, he is a guy that was so mentally locked in. He made a good run, but Force just had the meaner hot rod. John Force advances. Let's talk to the man from Rhode Island, Bob Tasca, with Jamie Howe.
And even Blake Alexander, who was on the losing end of the Bob Tasca 387 with the 5, had to come over and say, Zippy, the crew chief, Mike Neff, he is on it. The consistency in this car, the momentum of your program, what was the turning point this season?
Well, we knew we didn't have a car that could run with them early in the year. We just couldn't run on those good conditions, and Mike and John have worked tirelessly on a setup that we've been testing. We put it in the car this weekend, and this was the setup that we knew we needed to go out and run in the countdown for the championship. We struggled a little bit Friday in that first run. There was something they found in the clutch flows that they fixed, and this thing is a 387 bracket car. 2 more runs like that, you may find this thing in the winner's circle.
He is certainly hoping so, and he's certainly looking good. This is Robert Hight. Back in 2017, Hight made the fastest pass in the history of drag racing. There's been some rumors, there's been some thoughts. Was the car really set up to go 340 miles an hour? On this week's Cornwell Quality Tools Confidential, we asked Jimmy Prock that exact question.
Here with Jimmy Prock to talk about performance. You know, Jimmy, flashback, I was 5 years ago. You guys went 339.87 miles an hour. Rumor has it, and the folklore is, you were set up to go 341. How tough is that for you? I know how much you like performance, to come so close and not hit that 340 mark.
Well, you know, we didn't know for sure what we were going to do. All we felt was we were possibly capable of, you know, running that fast based on some runs earlier in the year and, you know, worst air conditions and stuff like back at Topeka. So you don't know for sure, you know, what the thing's going to run. You just, you know, try to do your best, and, you know, it came close, but it didn't quite do it.
So I know there's rule changes, laid back headers went back up, and that took some of the performance away, but you guys are continually improving. How long will it be till we see numbers in that realm again?
Oh, I would say we're quite a ways from that, honestly. With the header changes, you know, we've been hit with the rev limiter once or twice, so I don't see us getting that close to that anytime soon.
Well, I don't expect to see anyone close to it in this run right here. 340 miles an hour, not the recipe that Robert Hight is looking for in this matchup against Jim Campbell, the last pair of funny car here in round number 2. The problem for Robert Hight in the first round was the fact that they pressed too hard. He said he felt with a step of the throttle, it was wanted to break the tires loose, and finally did down track. He got lucky. They need to pull back and be a little more conservative this round.
Jim Campbell trying to become a fly in the ointment for Robert Hight. Jim Campbell's in this drag race, but it is going to be Robert Hight. 394.3 at 324 miles an hour. Campbell laid down another high 3-second pass, keeping him honest. 399.7 at 318. A good, strong weekend for Jim Dunn and Jim Campbell, but for Robert Hight, it just keeps getting stronger. Robert Hight will take on Bob Tasker III, and the boss man, John Force, will take on Alexis DeJoria. The 1, 4, 3, and 15 qualifiers are left in Nitro Funny Car. The Denso autograph session had fans snaked around the pit area to meet their favorite drivers, to sign hero cards, to wish them well and wish them luck this weekend. It has been a great, great weekend of weather, speed, and fun here at Sonoma Raceway, and we are not even close to being done with it yet. Stay with us. When we come back, it's time for the Pro Stockers. Welcome back to Sonoma Raceway. The Camping World display, a sprawling setup here. It's a great Adventure Awaits themed activity center. They had some great vintage cars. They were towing some vintage campers, and of course they had all the modern essentials that you would need out in the world if you're going camping. And NHRA Camping World Drag Racing, this is an incredible camping weekend at this particular racetrack. Some 50 acres across the racetrack of campgrounds sold out. All the internal camping sold out. It's been a wild one. The 8 remaining cars at Pro Stock are as follows. Great matchups here. Anders McGahey, that's a rematch from last week. On the right side, how about Greg Anderson and Bo Butner? Another rematch from the heights of the mountain in Denver, Colorado. Round 2 eliminations here in Pro Stock. The Summit Racing Equipment onboard roof camera and the Johnson's Horsepower Garage onboard camera for Bo Butner. They did swap an engine after the first round in Butner's car. The motor of this thing has not yet made a trip down the racetrack. And they're both climbing the RPM scale in complete harmony, but it is Greg Anderson, a 003 light, did not want to give another one back to Butner, who he lost to in Denver, Tony.
Oh, Bo Butner trying to play a little rope-a-dope with that engine, but that starting line advantage for Greg Anderson, near perfect. It was going to be hard to catch that one.
So both solid runs, but finally one of these breaks in Anderson's way. We ride along with Bo Butner. If there is any solace, it does mean that the fresh engine in this car will be good next weekend at the Flavor Pack Northwest Nationals, but it is done in competition today. Troy Coughlin Jr., the number 3 qualifier, and Kyle Koretsky, the Lucas Oil KPK Camaro. Look at this, Tony. Identical 17 reaction times, but Coughlin has tire shake problem.
Yeah, that may have really helped Kyle Koretsky. A good run, not the best run, but Troy Coughlin seemed to be a little bit better in qualifying, definitely better in the first round.
6:55.8 at 2:09 puts Koretsky ahead. A rematch of last year's final round at this race. Dallas Glenn, Rad Torque Systems Camaro, the Janik Brothers JC3 Energy car of Aaron Stanfield. 2 of the best young drivers in the category. Stanfield took 8th out with him from the starting line, and he carried it ahead. A 6:53.4 beats a 6:55.2.
Yeah, you've got a couple of young drivers. You've got a couple of the Sharpshooters on the starting line. Didn't disappoint.
Erica Anders and Mason McGahey. Erica lost on a hole shot to Mason McGahey in Denver. And she is not planning on doing it again. McGahey, an uncharacteristic 0.44 light. Erica was 21 green, and she is moving on. 6:54.0 beats a 6:54.6. This was a winnable race for Mason.
Well, it's winnable, and those are the times that you have to get her out. Unless these guys start to step up consistently, they're going to call this the Erica stock show.
Eric Anders will take on Aaron Stanfield. We've seen so much of that this year, and it will be Greg Anderson and Kyle Koretsky. It's a pair of teammates on both sides. Let's talk to Double E as she is with Jamie Howe.
Erica Anders advancing on to the semifinals where she will face off against Aaron Stanfield. But in that last run against Mason McGahey, the bottom bulb was flickering. You weren't in yet. What pressure did you feel to go ahead and get that race started?
Oh, not much. I was just thinking about last week how he threw something at the wall and it stuck and he beat us. But, you know, it was 11 first round. We were 20 right there. But I did see his bottom bulb flicker. So I waited a second and I saw it flicker again. So I was trying to decide what he was going to do. And I said, screw it, I'm going to do my deal and crack it. And we did. So this Melling Performance car is going to the semifinals here. We race our teammate, which is typically the final round appearance. So it'll be balls to the wall and we're going to have fun.
And so Eric Anders heads to another semifinal round. We talk about how big a deal camping is here at Sonoma Raceway. You cannot look in any direction of this drag strip without seeing a sea of campers, including this 50-acre conglomeration. This is like, it's the mini Brainerd Zoo with a view in Sonoma. When we come back, more drag racing. We are back here in the pits at Sonoma Raceway. It's the Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals, and that is the sprawling Suzuki display. One of the neatest displays on the property, especially if you love motorcycles. They have a wide variety of their street bikes here. They have a pro stock motorcycle set up that you can sit on to see exactly what it's like. They have all kinds of accessories, and they have knowledgeable people on hand to tell you about all of it. And yes, they even have a couple of road racing motorcycles there, and I guess motorcycles are also designed to turn corners. Weird. Now let's take a look at our Denso onboard recap for Matt and Angie Smith. We go back to the Virginia Nationals. This was Matt's first win of the season. You're going to hear that Suzuki screaming down the quarter mile. Next up, we go to Bristol, Tennessee. And in Bristol, we watch Angie Smith advance her way to a semifinal round. A much different sound and track.
Much different sound, Brian, because this is a V-twin. Only revs up to about 10.5 on the engine RPM.
And then finally, we come to this weekend at the Sonoma Nationals, where Angie Smith set a personal best speed of over 203 miles an hour. And here's what it looks like from the handlebars. And that is a look back at some of our Denso on-board camera footage. Stunning stuff that we've never had before this season. Angel Sampey will have to buy this round. Matt Smith and Eddie Krawick, a couple of long-lost pals there. Steve Johnson, Jerry Savoy, and finally Joey Gladstone will take on Katie Justice. And we begin with our round two highlight package, Steve Johnson and Jerry Savoy. Steve Johnson has systematically watched his points lead in Pro Stock Motorcycle Road. He needs a round win. He does not need an 0.84 reaction time. And Jerry Savoy is going to put a fork in him. 675 beats a 673. The Camping World whole shot camera tells the story. And this is a backbreaker for Johnson because Angel in this round has no opponent. She's going to pass him in the points.
Yeah, for Steve Johnson, he seems to have the machine. He just has to get up for those big matchups.
A buy run here. Let's listen. The Suzuki on board. The absolute scream, banshee-like scream of that Suzuki 686A, 200.5 miles an hour for Angel. Joey Gladstone, the Diamond V-sponsored motorcycle. Katie Justice rolls in. Justice was okay, but Joey Gladstone, an 014 like. This guy's knocking at the door with a tank barrel. He wants a win so badly. 673.5 at 202. He's getting quicker as the day goes on.
Right, there could be trouble. All Joey Gladstone has needed over the last several years is a quicker machine.
Matt Smith and Eddie Krawick. No love lost between these two at any point. Hardcore competitors of Anson Hines bike for Krawick. The Denso machine for Matt Smith. Smith's on the tank down there, and it's going to be another whole shot win. 675.0 beats a 674.8. 1/10 thou for the finish line stripe margin of victory. Look at this, Tony.
Well, if that is an Ironman bike, he was just paid a visit by Eddie Krawick on a Thor machine.
Man alive, Eddie Krawick moves on as Matt Smith reviews the time slip, and you can see that subtle movement of his helmet, shaking his head in frustration and disbelief. He'll be loading that bike up and heading down the dusty trail. It'll be Angel and Eddie, the teammates, taking on Jerry Savoie and Joey Gladstone. Will it be Angel and Joey in another final round? It may be shaping up that way. And Angel has seized the points lead. She's ahead of Steve Johnson by 12, Matt Smith by 36. And those two riders, 4 and 5, Gladstone and Krawick, want to continue gathering points to tighten up their particular championship status. We can see motorcycles aplenty here at Sonoma Raceway of all different shapes, sizes, makes, and models. Which one's yours?
I like Suzuki, but I like 4 wheels.
We'll be right back.
But Denso, NHRA Sonoma Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Denso. The best part is peace of mind.
We are back. The beautiful sights and sounds of the Bay Area, city of San Francisco. A very short drive from this drag strip. And, of course, this was another of the racetracks that Bruton Smith had such a massive influence on. Part of his organization, of course, part of his group of racetracks. We lost Bruton Smith not too long ago. His history in not only drag racing but American motorsports will reverberate for generations. We now look at our ladder in the top fuel category. Sean Langdon will take on Brittany Force. Langdon needs to find performance. And Doug Coletta will take on Mike Salinas, a battle of the Alan Johnson former and current cars. And it is go time here in semifinal round action. The Pleasanton Ready Mix top fueler of Mike Salinas. Again, I can't stress enough, the local hero at this racetrack as we watch the progression of the weather throughout the course of the day. Yeah, there was a pretty big growth in temperature from round 1 to round 2, but the stability of that leaving for the rest of the day is going to be very interesting. Doug Coletta to take on Mike Salinas. Mike Salinas, to this point in his career, is 11-3 versus Doug Coletta. He's 2-0 versus the Mac Tools top fueler this year. It's the latest in the rounds they have met in over a year. And Salinas is going to streak on by. He goes 384.4, 321 miles an hour. And Mike Salinas dropped an 0.56 reaction time on Doug Coletta, which ended up being irrelevant after his car had mechanical problems.
You know, Mike Salinas has really been on X game mode the last several races. And 0.56, that's about 0.03 of a second quicker than Doug Coletta. However, on this race, you can see that Doug Coletta was able to make up the difference. It was something mechanically wrong with the Mike Salinas car. Their car slowed down over 1/10 of a second, but it did not matter. Let's watch the Doug Coletta car right there, just before it gets to 300 feet, breaking them rear tires loose.
So Mike Salinas, and look at this guy fired up. He's out of the car already, pumping his fist for good reason. That was likely a highly emotional round win for him. As we look at the starting line, Sean Langdon and Brittany Force. Langdon's running like he hasn't run since 2017. 2 finals in the last 3 races now. The CMR Roofing.com dragster. We look at our best leavers in top fuel. We see Sean Langdon in there, leaving first 54% of the time. Justin Ashley leaves mostly first with a 67.9% average. But those are really the 5 kind of high-level drivers in category. And we go down to the starting line again with Bruno Massel.
Brian talked to David Grubnick back in the pits about his aggressive approach, setting track records on the first 2 rounds of eliminations. He said we were forced to because we had such tough competition. He said it was a risky proposition, but you know what? I've laid up before and got burned. I'm not laying up anymore.
And that has been his MO, and it seems as though the harder they run that car, the more it likes it, as Langdon will be second to pre-stage. The flavor-packed top fueler of Brittany Force all in. Sean Langdon was 56 on the tree, but a 367.5, 337.75, Tony. It is unbelievable the speed they're getting out of this car.
Brian, it's really amazing. It's nothing short of amazing. The whole shot by Sean Langdon was chewed up and spit out within the first 60 feet of this run. You can see him move first, open the injectors, get on the throttle a little bit quicker off the starting line, but that horsepower for Brittany Force just kicked in so early. Look at the differential in speed. 287 miles an hour for Sean Langdon. 295 miles an hour. That's just in the first 660 feet of this racetrack.
They are within 1/2 of 1 mile an hour of the top fuel record of 338.17 miles an hour. It is absolutely astonishing, and Mike Salinas is going to have to deal with that in the final round.
I'm sure right now Mike Salinas is paying attention to that. They're going to have to bring everything they have if you want to compete against this car.
So Brittany Force will compete in her 32nd career final round. When we come back, it's Nitro Funny Car time.
The Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Camping World, making RVing fun and easy since 1966.
Of course, it goes without saying, but just to clarify that Brittany Force has once again reset the speed record here at the racetrack in top fuel as we move into Nitro Funny Car. Robert Height, Bob Taska III, John Force, and Alexis DeJoria on the starting line right now. As we look down and see John Force, the Peak Coolant and Antifreeze Chevrolet Camaro, a 14-time finalist here at Sonoma Raceway. John Force is a guy who has had so much success here in Alexis DeJoria, the Rocket Phones Bandero Premium Tequila Machine. We talk about the success this team has, and their success lies in the fact that the car makes runs. It makes complete passes.
It's quick and it's consistent. They have lane choice, but that number's a little bit skewed. John Force, by the way he staged in the second round, lost lane choice. I'm sure that they're looking at those numbers. I don't think there is a difference in lanes. We've seen good runs from the left lane, good runs from the right lane.
And they leave. Alexis is out first. At the finish line stripe, it will be John Force for the 263rd time in his Hall of Fame career. John Force is going to a final round 3:9:09 at 328 miles an hour.
Well, there may not be any denying of John Force on this day. When you beat Ron Capps in the first round, J.R. Todd, and now Alexis, one of the best running cars, John Force was spot on. Got a good start off of the starting line, pretty equal, pretty even off the start. Alexis was actually a little bit faster at the 8th mile, her 8th mile speed, but by the finish line, 0.03 of a second for John Force.
Man, just a nice piece of tuning work there by Tim Fabrizi and Daniel Hood. The car making good steam. We're going to find out if he's able to hold on to lane choice and if it will be a JFR final completely in Nitro Funny Car. JFR, of course, being John Force Racing, as his teammate Robert Height will be facing off against Bob Taska III. Bob Taska III rolling to the water box now. The Ford Motorcraft Quick Lane Mustang. And the red, white, and blue Auto Club Camaro of Robert Height. We come into this round with Bob Taska III having a car that is not just consistent, but 87.5 and 87.5 and an 87.5. It's like they've broken the timing system.
You know, if there was ever a time that you had Robert Height on the ropes, it is right now. It is this Motorcraft machine. It's Bob Taska. Been very good off the starting line. He's been hanging with Robert the last couple of final rounds. He hung with him in Norwalk several weeks ago, in Denver a week ago. He was really destined to get in the final. These two have really been on a collision course. They just so happen to be meeting up in the semifinals. And typically, in this round, the track temperature really starts to increase because the sun has been on the track, but on this weekend, we still have low to mid 70-degree temperatures, so I don't think the track surface is going to change that much.
It is amazing that they keep finding each other in streaks. When we look at the early part of the season, it was Matt Hagan and Robert Height always finding each other in these races and kind of in sequence of the season. Now, it has been these two guys. It's become a weekly part of NHRA drag racing that there'll be a Ford and a Chevy. Nitro burning Hemis under their hood, squaring off late in the rounds of Sunday afternoon. And that's looking pretty good, and it's Bob Taska III. That is a huge, huge round win for this team. 3:9:07, 3:26. Height goes a 3:92.5.
Well, you talk about Bob Taska just being patient, just hanging in there, keeping the pressure on that AAA team. Anyone out here is beatable on any given Sunday. And for Bob Taska, good off the starting line. Great teamwork. His tuner gave him a good car, has given him a consistent car. And for a driver, from a driver's perspective, you're able to get up for these big matchups.
And for Bob Tasca III, he's talked about this tune-up they've been working on. His third straight race, he appearing in a final round. It is the 24th final of his career.
Well, it was close, nearly identical on the starting line, but you can see at the finish line for Bob Tasca, forget about it.
Now let's go to the top end of the racetrack. Jamie Howe is with, once again, the fastest woman, the fastest anyone in the history of this drag strip, Brittany Force.
And just to put some perspective on that, out of the 38 records available in NHRA competition, that's between ETs and speed, Brittany Force owns 22 of them, 337 miles an hour here in eliminations today. You used to come to this race as a little girl. What thought would you have given to the numbers you've been able to put down here this weekend?
It's just incredible. I'm so proud of this team, everybody involved from top to bottom. This Flavor Pack team, they've been working so hard, and we've been struggling on race day. So now we're going rounds, we're going to that final, and to be able to run the way we've been running, mile per hour and ET on race day, we've really stepped it up since qualifying and feeling good, and we just have one more.
It is a scary prospect to have to face that car in a final round, but we know that Mike Salinas is up to the challenge. His team currently still holds the points lead, and they want to keep it. And to do that, they will have to beat her in the final round, or Brittany will surpass Salinas and regain that points lead. There's some psychology involved there as John Force's car gets towed back to the pit area. Robert Height, you can't win them all. He wanted that one as well, but Bob Tasca finally breaks through. The Fatheads eyewear drone cam looking over the end of the racetrack as the Safety Safari helps roll those parachutes up as we take a look at our Nitro Funny Car ladder, and this is how the final round has shaped up. It is John Force out of the number 15 position versus Bob Tasca III. John Force seeking another win in his career, and Bob Tasca III seeking his first of the season. Now we go back to Jamie Howe with our finalists in both categories.
And very similar runs here in the semifinals. John Force's 390 with a 9 compared to Tasca's 390 with a 7. John, you asked about lane choices that make a difference up here in Sonoma.
I don't know, it doesn't seem to, but it always makes you feel better. But you know, at the end of the day, new sponsors, NK Seed, Power Solar, so many people, of course, Cornwell Tools, and I'm just excited. Pete took a chance with me. I got to get him back into a final, got to get him some wins, but I'm up against a tough kid here, Tasca. But I love racing with these kids, and I got to light my fire. Every time I went around, I get younger. There's still hope for me.
And Tasca, Bob Tasca, when you walked over here, the first thing you said to John was, "There's nobody I like racing more than you, John." Why?
People always ask, who do you like to race the most? Who do you get up the most for? It's that man right there. He's the GOAT. And when you get a chance to race against the best who's ever done it, and I got a pretty good hot rod right now, we're going to have one heck of a final round. Stay tuned.
Pro Stock Eliminator on the racetrack now as we have Greg Anderson and Kyle Koretsky, one half of this semi-final round. Both cars using KB Racing horsepower. Greg Anderson driving, if not angry, seemingly driving with a chip on his shoulder. A 003 reaction time earlier in the rounds of competition. The first one of those he had carded all season long. And for Kyle Koretsky out of Pennsylvania, it is another opportunity to achieve a final round. Greg Anderson seeking his 168th career final. Of course, more importantly than that, he's seeking his 100th career victory. He's been stuck on 99 for a little while now.
Yeah, he's got a couple of tough racers he has to go through. Now, Kyle Koretsky was about 0.02 of a second quicker on the racetrack, but for Greg Anderson, if he can back up that near-perfect reaction time he had in the earlier round, he could compete.
Kyle Koretsky's numbers, of course, smaller. His career less developed. Seeking his 7th career. Oh, Koretsky's going nowhere in a hurry. Greg Anderson is heading to final round number 168 with a bullet. 6:55.7 at 2:08.94. The century mark awaits, but he's going to have to race somebody for it, and that's what we're going to find out with the next pair.
Well, he did run a little bit quicker. He dipped down into that 6:55 range. But big trouble lies ahead. However, he does find himself in a final round. It's been a while since we have seen this kind of Greg Anderson with this kind of performance and so quick off the starting line.
We watch Greg's run, and it is just, it is the prototypical clean pro stock run. Watch Koretsky disappear. Kyle had his problems. Greg with a little bit of steering input down course there. The Summer Racing Equipment onboard camera. We watch again.
Yeah, for Kyle Koretsky, he encountered problems early. It didn't sound like the engine wanted to rev up. Maybe some tire slippage. maybe something going wrong mechanically with the motor. But a good showing for this Lucas Oil team getting to the semifinal round.
Incidentally, Greg's last final was effectively a year ago when we raced at Pomona as part of the Western Swing, and he had to race Kyle Koretsky. So as Kyle Koretsky's car is removed from the racetrack, we will take a break. We'll be back here momentarily. You're going to see Erica and Aaron Stanfield throw down.
The Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals on Fox is sponsored by Lucas Oil, the world leader in high-performance lubricants and problem-solving additives.
What a day it has been so far as we come back to Sonoma Raceway for the semi-final rounds of Pro Stock Eliminator. Here is Erica Enders. 31 times she has been a low qualifier, tied 9th all time. Lining up next to Aaron Stanfield, and you know, Tony, when we just glance at Pro Stock points at this point in the season, it's Erica, it is Aaron, and then there's some other people hundreds of points back.
Yeah, all the rest. They're bringing up the rear, as they would say.
So Stanfield on the E3 spark plug side, Erica here on the Toyota side of the racetrack. The two always race each other very hard. They race each other straight up. We would kind of compare them to Hagen and Heidt in Funny Car. There is never any sort of mental games. It is the acceptance that the person in the other lane is as good, sometimes maybe better than you are. And Stanfield's car lurches off the starting line awkwardly. Erica Enders a 115 light, but none of that matters as he foul started. She goes 6:52.7 and 2:11 odd.
Brian, that had to be something mechanical, electronic, something in the car. It seemed to happen as soon as he got up on the two-step, as soon as he got the throttle to the floor. It's supposed to, of course, hold the rev limiter back, and I'm sure they're going to take a good close look at that, and that cost him the win.
Now it is time for the semifinals here in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Eddie Krawick and Angel. And Angel goes 061 red. Krawick is going to the final round, seeking his 50th career victory. A 669, 6 and 202, and it's out the window.
Oh, Brian, what a waste. You're looking at 0.06 of a second. Another track record, the best performance we've seen this weekend. You can see the frustration from Angel.
A virtually perfect ride is stricken from the record because of the foul start. Joey Gladstone and Jerry Savoie now. Savoie, the whole shot artist, has taken down two quicker motorcycles. He's going to try to do it again. Savoie's machine drifting toward the center line. Joey Gladstone straight as a proverbial arrow. 675.4 at 200. Savoie a 10th behind him at 684.9.
Yeah, it really wasn't going good for Jerry Savoie from the start. Not a big starting line advantage, but it almost seemed like he was looking at Gladstone as he just slowly started to pull away from Jerry.
Clean and mean. Jerry riding up on the center line, and for Joey Gladstone, seeking win number 1 against the man seeking win number 50, and the man seeking his first victory will have lane choice in the final round of Pro Stock Motorcycle. What a day it has been. What a day it has been in this category and in this class. It has been highly entertaining as we continue on with our coverage of the NHRA Western Swing beginning next weekend, 2 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Saturday is our beginning qualifying coverage. Final qualifying coverage, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, July 31st, also on FS1. And the final round eliminations from the Northwest Nationals right here on Fox, 4 p.m. Eastern. Same time we started today. We'll be back. This, John Milner's coupe, Bob Falfa's 55 Chevy. This is the same car that was used in the movie Two-Lane Blacktop. It was repainted, the same 4-speed big block Chevy combo. We'll be back soon to Sonoma Raceway. And here we are, the final rounds of this 2022 Denso NHRA Sonoma Nationals. Brian Lones and Tony Pedregon in the booth. Jamie Howe and Bruno Massel. The boots on the ground, bringing you the reports from the pits, starting line, and finish line. It has been a great crowd and great weather all weekend long at Sonoma. The folks up in this part of Northern California love their drag racing. Many of them will travel up to Seattle, Washington. That race next weekend is significant. We have not raced at Pacific Raceway since 2019, a homecoming of sorts for NHRA drag racing in the Pacific Northwest. And it is go time right now. The signal being given to fire up our Pro Stock Motorcycle Final. Tony, you've been a young rider, young driver rather, and a guy like Gladstone, it has to harden you a little bit. To come close and miss the first time has to be heartbreaking. The second and third times have to be hurt as well, but this experience in final rounds has to help him get over the hump.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Joey is the one final that he was in, or rather the closest he got to winning, he was well on his way to a victory. We knew it, he knew it, and he got really close. You know, and the emotion that he carries, I mean, it works. It's different for everyone.
Yeah.
I learned over my career that, I didn't want to bring that emotion into the car with me, but I've seen plenty of successful drivers, riders
that harness it.
Yeah, that it works the opposite. But there's no mistaking, there's no denying the talent of Joey Gladstone. But when you look over in the other lane, Eddie Krawiec, and I've talked about that powerhouse Vance and Hines, are just so hard to deny.
Eddie Krawiec is seeking career victory number 50. One of the great riders in the history of the category, one of the great champions in the history of the category. And again, Joey Gladstone is seeking victory number 1. Gladstone, his 3rd straight final round. He has come up dry 2 times already. Eddie Krawiec, a bit of a dry spell for him. As we mentioned, his last win coming in Maple Grove, or at Maple Grove, the track now owned by the Koretsky family. That was during the countdown of the 2021 season. Suzuki's a pair, both built by Vance and Hines. Horsepower is equal, the chassis is equal. Everything about these two are equal, but one rider will be better than the other. Human nature. Here we go. Gladstone, he's got enough. Does he have enough? 1,000 feet, quarter-mile strike, Joey Gladstone, first career win, and he does it on a hole shot. Gladstone, 675.9 at 200 miles an hour, 675.8, 199. What a fitting way for Joey to get his first one, hole shotting one of the class's greats.
Well, we'll get another look at this, and that's what it comes down to. It was either going to come down to a little bit of tuning, which tuner was going to give their rider a little more power, or the rider that got off of the starting line. And we're going to take another look at this, and it is clear to see that Joey Gladstone was first off the mark and was able to carry that momentum to the finish line.
Gladstone is one of the most versatile competitors in the history of this category, and he will be highly emotional when he comes off this motorcycle as we watch again. Joey has raced on and won in virtually every form of motorcycle drag racing that exists, except for this one, but that statistic ends today. The emotion flowing out of him, he has his head down in the tank right now. We saw the other side of this in Charlotte last year after surviving a horrible wreck, but with his teammate, Corey Reed, was flipping in front of him. He made the final round and lost on a fluke to Angel. There was no fluke today.
No, and I'm sure right now Joey Gladstone, he's taking it all in. It really hasn't hit him. I mean, he understands he got to the finish line first. You can see the wind light. There's a light on the guard wall, and if you're paying close attention, you can see it, and it's just going to slowly start to sink in over the next 10 minutes for this rider.
He did not want this one to get away. Why? There's a long break for the motorcycles coming. We don't see them again until the Topeka race, and he will not have to have consternation or anger over a lost final. Joey Gladstone has done it, and he is at the top end with Jamie.
The emotion already flowing out of our now pro stock motorcycle winner, Joey Gladstone. All of the tribulations that you guys went through to get to this moment. What are you going to remember about today?
I've been waiting for this day since I was 12 years old when I decided I wanted to race pro stock motorcycle, and to finally be here to do it and to race these guys and to race the best in the world. This means everything to me, and it makes it all worth it. I spent my whole life trying to get here, and I just want to tell my wife at home, Nicole, I love you. I miss you. I can't wait to see you. And to Jim and Andy Whiteley for affording me this blessing and allowing Corey and I to follow our dreams. I love you. I can't wait to see you guys. Let's go.
Congratulations. Let's go to Bruno with Corey Reed.
Corey Reed on the starting line. You just got to watch your buddy give that emotional interview. What are you feeling right now?
Same thing. I wish I was up there giving him a hug. Can't lie. Oh yeah, it feels good. This is what we've been working for the past 6 years for me and 5 for him. It finally happened.
Go give him that hug. Congratulations.
Man, appreciate it.
Of course, Corey Reed still recovering from the after effects of that horrendous accident in Charlotte. And this may expedite that recovery as we watch Joey Gladstone one more time. We've watched this guy mature, and that's the only way you can say it. We've watched him mature, and he's gotten on better and better equipment, and has finally come through for him.
Well, talent, they say the cream rises to the top, and when you look at how Joey was performing in qualifying, I mean, he started from the number 3 position. He had the slight advantage going into the final round. He was just slightly better all weekend than Eddie Krawiec.
And Eddie Krawiec wrapping him on the arms a couple of times, and, it's a bittersweet moment for Eddie, but Eddie Eddie will continue to get his. Number 50 for Eddie is not far off, we are sure, but I don't think there is anybody in this entire drag strip that was looking at the starting line going, geez, I hope Joey doesn't get this done.
That was a close race, too. I mean, it was really, when you're standing on the starting line from Corey Reed's perspective, I mean, he was just waiting to see what came on the scoreboard and who won the race. That's how close it was.
He is appreciative and thankful, and those are two great qualities in any sort of championship-level competitor. And we have two of those championship-level competitors, in fact, champions themselves, coming to the starting line. This is not Greg and Erica. This is not the Denso car, the HendrickCars.com car versus the Melling car. This is the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Two of the, if not the two greatest modern pro stock racers fight each other in a final round again.
You know, it really is, Brian. You look at the burnout. All these drivers, they start the burnout in third gear. They're running through a couple of gears. What's important isn't necessarily the level of traction. There's plenty of rubber on this racetrack. It is still about 110, 115 degrees. The traction is going to be there. But what's most important is they build a specific amount of temperature in that engine. We talk about what this racetrack means and how it translates into horsepower and performance. This is a stat that tells us a lot. This is the 5th time that the number 1 and 2 qualifiers have met in the final round here. The number 2 qualifier has won 3 of the previous 4 meetings. But what that tells us, when number 1 and 2 qualifiers make final rounds with this type of consistency at a single event, it means that the racetrack's always on point, and it means that the people with the most horsepower will succeed. Yeah, now if you look at the performance of Greg Anderson, he knows it, we know it. We're looking at our spreadsheet at the ladder. 300s is the number.
Yes.
So I'm sure what they did in the pits, Rob Downing, they have to find a little more horsepower, a little more performance. They can do that with the chassis. They can change the tire. They can fire some more timing unless they have that maxed out. They have a different fuel map they can plug in. But he has to do a job on the starting line. If you leave the starting line behind Erica, when she is this hot, you're in big trouble.
There is no defense in the sport of drag racing. It is a sport based on offense, and the offense begins with the quickness of your reaction off the starting line. Erica simply cannot give Greg Anderson too much leash. And Greg Anderson has to lead before Erica knows what happened. Erica, 0.18 reaction time, a 300ths advantage. She takes it to the 1,000-foot stripe. 6:57.4 beats a 6:56.5. It's a whole shot because she whacked them upside with a waffle iron on the upside the head with a waffle iron on the starting line.
Yeah, the kitchen sink really flew out of Greg Anderson's hand. You know, it's a shame to see it go down like that. I mean, Greg's been so good to get to this final round. But there again, we talk about the starting line, the races that are won and lost because of reflexes. This is no different than a sprint race. I mean, when you're racing on foot, Usain Bolt, you want to be the first out of the blocks, and you can see that Erica was the first to react. And when she has had a car as good as she has had this weekend during eliminations in qualifying, Greg Anderson was in big trouble. However, it was quite the surprise to see that he outperformed her on the racetrack, but not on the starting line.
Career victory number 38 for Erica Enders. It is the 67th final round of her storied career. The 6th final round she has been in this season, and she is having a season that can only be described as Anderson-esque from when the man was in his absolute prime. The good news for Greg Anderson is that this final round, a couple races back, would have been inconceivable with how everything was working and running, and you could physically hear how quick she was out there.
Yeah, Greg Anderson, he can see it, he can hear it, he's still going through the motions. He was able to stay on his shift points, but well, there it is. Just under a half of a car length. That's the difference between a driver being a little bit quicker off of that jump.
But a Greg Anderson that has seemingly awoken is bad news perhaps for the rest of the class. Erica Enders has extended her points lead over Aaron Stanfield to 80 points. And then we have to go 307 points back to the 3rd place car. Absolutely amazing. Those two cars have been nearly even this season, and everybody else has been trying to figure out how to stop them. Jamie Howe is at the top end of the racetrack with Pro Stock winner Erica Enders.
Erica Enders now collects her 6th Wally of the 2022 season, but you had to do this one on a whole shot. How does that change the way you're going to celebrate it?
No different. Anytime you can have one of these awesome Wallies in your hand, it's a good day. I'll tell you what, my guys really rallied. We had to change a bunch of stuff at the pit. I was throwing my helmet on. GA was waiting for me, so it was kind of one of those rush finals. But we're like 150 feet shy of the finish line, and my engine let go. That's why we were only 196 mile an hour. But thank God we got it done for Melling Performance. I have never won
here in Sonoma in 18 years of pro stock racing, so this one means a whole bunch to me. We've been talking about that wine goblet all weekend, but I said last weekend in Denver we were going to do this for Grandpa. I got beat first round, but we're doing it for Grandpa and one of our really good friends, Lloyd Parfait, who passed away last week. But Dad, we did it. My boys are badass. Woo! Congratulations.
A Wally 10 years in the making since her last Western Swing victory. That one has to feel good and feel bad for everybody else. This, the Melling Performance Elite Motorsports team reacting to the win light at the big end of the drag strip. They have a lot of passion in that camp, and they race very, very hard. They don't necessarily rub everybody the right way, but it doesn't matter to them. What they want to do is collect wins, and they have been doing that. Mark Ingersoll, the entire team celebrating a hero's welcome as they went down the return road to scoop up Erica Enders. There's two sides to every final. Let's talk to the second side in the second half. Greg Anderson is with Jamie Howe.
He said he had to throw the kitchen sink at it, and you certainly did step it up there in the final round. You finally went to a final, though, this season. What momentum is this going to give the team for the rest of it?
Well, that certainly helps. No question about it. That's a hell of a race team right there. And, you know, we're coming back. It takes time. We've dug ourselves a pretty deep hole, Jamie, and it's going to take a little while to dig out of it. But obviously that's the right direction, no question. And the driver didn't get it done there. Doggone it. But maybe next week. We're going on to Seattle and another chance next week. So thank you to everybody. Denzo, Hendrick Cars, thank you so much. Hang in, everybody. I'm going to get that number 100, I promise you.
And Greg Anderson has made good on virtually every promise in his storied career. Now it is time to speak of storied careers. Let's talk about the most mythical one in NHRA history. That is the one belonging to John Brute Force, as he will be taking on Bob Tasca III in the Nitro Funny Car final round. Legacy is really the story on both sides here. Force is the greatest Nitro Funny Car drag racer in history. And Tasca, as a family that has had such an influence on the sport of drag racing over the course of years. We look at John Force, who has never won a race from any spot lower than the number 12 position. The number 15 funny car qualifier has only won 4 times in the history of NHRA Funny Car. And you know what he's thinking? Who cares?
John doesn't care about any of those stats. John Force has a knack to win races. He always has. You know, he had the best car. He had the best tuners, the best of everything for a lot of years. But, you know, he had some pretty tough competition. Yes. And I was with him for 8 of those years as I was a hired driver. And I remember John Force being the 16 qualifier and racing the number 1 qualifier and beating him on a hole shot. That's just the ability. This guy will get down in the weeds and he will roll around if you got in a fight with him.
He was the number 15 qualifier. He faced Ron Capps in the first round. Everybody was shoveling dirt over top of him. And then he beat Ron Capps and finds himself in this final. For Bob Tasca III, it's the same story as Joey Gladstone in so many ways. His 3rd straight final round. He doesn't look over and see Robert Height. That has to comfort him somewhat because Height has taken him to the cleaners twice in a row.
Well, Bob Tasca has really been the picture of performance and consistency on this day, and it really seems to be his race to lose.
Tasca completing the burnout, the Ford Motorcraft Quick Lane Mustang. The Peak Antifreeze and Coolant Chevrolet Camaro for John Force. We have seen John Force in a little bit more, I don't want to say subdued, because he's never subdued, but a little less over-the-top attitude this weekend. The very first interview he did after he won first round when he spoke with Jamie Howe, it struck me as being a guy who is really focused on what's happening inside that race car. Both Tasca and Force have the propensity to use all of the starting line. Neither one of these guys is afraid to use all of that staging area.
No, and I think that's just something that the drivers really throw out the window when it comes to the final. Nobody really cares about shallow staging. They're not shooting for lane choice. You know, a lot of this could come down to tuning. I mean, the thing that is most dangerous about John Force is they need some performance to be able to compete with Tasca. The Tasca, you have to think, they're going to go back to how they performed in the first round, in the second round. That's going to push the limits for this machine right here, John Force. You can see that shadow started to be cast. That means the track, the temperature could be coming down. It could be as good as it's been all day.
Toyota side for John Force. E3 spark plug side for Bob Tasca. Force is in pre-stage, as is Tasca. The Nitro Funny Car final of the NHRA Sonoma Nationals is locked in. Tasca rockets off the starting line first. He will not be denied a third time. 391.1, 325.61 miles per hour, 399.8 for John Force in a losing effort, and much like Joey Gladstone, Bob Tasca left nothing to chance.
No, Bob Tasca is tired of getting beat around for the last couple of weeks. His boys on the starting line. This is a big win for this guy today.
They were celebrating. The family has traveled to Western Swing together. Bob is going to be elated. The Ford Motor Company will be elated. That family has incredible relationships up, down, and sideways throughout that outfit. And when we say he's got his whole family here, there's a hockey team worth of Tascas running around this drag strip, and they are all celebrating on the starting line.
You know, Bob, look at the starting line advantage. Now, John Force did what he always does. It's really his trademark, and that is what makes him so difficult to race, because he gets in the head of his opponent, even when he doesn't roll in a deep stage. But it did not phase Bob Tasca. Spot on an 0.48 reaction time. He's been exceptionally good over the last couple of finals that he has been in, but there was no denying him. There was no denying that performance of that car. And internally, what happens within these teams is there's always a battle between the driver and the crew chief. But Bob Tasca has allowed, there's his kids right there. There's Cameron, there's Dylan, there's Adam Sims' boy. These guys are going to celebrate. They've got a little routine. They've been close to friends and family all weekend long. And I might have to jump into this party tonight.
And the Top Fuel final is here. Incidentally, it is Tasca's 10th win, moving him into a double-digit category of Nitro Funny Car victories, more elite company. This is a grand display of performance for both drivers in both teams, meaning first Brittany Force. And secondly, Mike Salinas. We have seen two drivers handle their business appropriately. We have seen two crews work flawlessly. We have seen two crew chiefs make brave, gutsy decisions that have won them rounds. This is a very difficult choice to make.
Yeah, it really is. There's the tuner for Brittany Force. This guy is absolutely spectacular. I'm sure his name is going to join the ranks of Dale Armstrong, of Dick LaHaye, of Alan Johnson, all the tuning greats. I don't know if there's going to be any beating of this woman today, Brittany Force. But if anyone can do it, it's the Mike Salinas car. They have been good. They have been able to rise to the occasion. Mike Salinas, however he has done it, he has found his inner self, and he has become one of the best levers in this Top Fuel category.
This is drag racing's version of a homecoming dance for Mike Salinas. His home racetrack, a place that has been a source of near endless frustration for about a decade, has now turned into a place that he will cherish and remember for a very long time about this one Sunday. He seeks one additional win light, but his problem is Brittany wants that same one. Top Fuel final, Sonoma Nationals. Now, Brittany Force 033 in the Christmas tree, and Brittany goes 3.709 at 335.48 miles an hour to put an exclamation point on what was one of the most fantastic weekends of Top Fuel performance in history. Mike Salinas goes 374.1.
Well, that's going to ease a lot of the pain for John Force. You can see Brittany's dad on the starting line, and we were talking about what Mike Salinas had to do. It was Brittany Force that was really reversed the roles on the starting line.
They're going to be partying from Cranston to Coventry all the way down to the bottom of the state of Rhode Island tonight. Jamie Howe is with Bob Tasca III.
And that celebration has certainly reached the top, and now everybody's down here, Bob. 3 finals in a row. You finally got it done. What made the difference today?
Well, first I got to apologize to all those Ford fans out here. It took way too long to get that Ford in the winner's circle this year, but you know something? It's just hard work. We knew we didn't have a setup at the beginning of the year that could run with them. The guys worked hard through the middle and early part of the season, and this is what we got. And to be honest, I think they put some Ford autonomous autopilot in that thing. You almost didn't need a driver today. That's how awesome that car ran. Excited for Ford, BG, Auto Alert, PPG, all the logos on that car. Nitro Fishers out there watching. Yes, 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 baby.
Congratulations, Bob.
And his boys greet him at the top end of the racetrack. Let's take a look now at the funny car standings as they are up to the moment. Robert Height's lead has grown to 144 points over Matt Hagan. We see Caps and John Force in 4th, Bob Tasca 3rd, Cruz Pedregon, J.R. Todd making up 6 and 7, Alexis DeJoria, Tim Wilkerson, and Chad Green making up the current top 10 of NHRA Nitro Funny Car points. And let's watch this reaction one more time. The gaggle of Tasca supporters, the boys there. There's some dancing, there's some jumping, there's some high-fiving.
There's a little bit of everything, and there's a lot of celebrating in Providence, Rhode Island right now with his mom and dad, the whole family as well.
Bob climbed atop the Mustang, gave us the V for victory. and pumped his fist into the air. We take a look back at this Top Fuel final, and you know, Tony, you can't really overstate how good this day of Top Fuel racing has been.
No, and what Brittany Force did is I mean, she dug in deep. I know that's a cliche, but you know that's what drivers do. This is a championship round. I'm sure that as we approach the countdown to the championship towards the end of the year, Brittany Force is going to look back at this race and how she performed, how they were able to win, the kind of performance the car had, but the driver pulled her weight as well and really took it to Mike Salinas on the starting line.
She has changed our expectations of her to perform like this on the regular. This is less the anomaly and more the regular. She has found a comfort level in that race car that has been maybe lacking over the last season or two, for maybe just between that esoteric space between the years. She has it figured out, and she can stand up and she can bring the big numbers when she needs to. Brittany Force has won another Wally. Brittany Force has regained the points lead. Brittany Force is with Jamie Howe at the top end of the drag strip.
She may have won another Wally, Brian, but this is her very first Sonoma Wally. And as a driver who grew up coming to this racetrack every year to watch your dad race, now take home your own Wally from Sonoma. How is this one different?
I've always wanted to win here. I've been coming here since a kid. I ran Super Comp, A-Fuel, and now this Flavor Pack Monster Energy team. We got it to the winner's circle. This is David Grubnick, Max Savage, all the guys all day running 67, 60s. That's just incredible. I'm so proud of them. This is a big win. Always wanted to win here, and we finally pulled it off.
Congratulations, Brittany.
That great mix of excitement, of relief, and of triumph out of Brittany Force as she raises the Wally above her head. The Top Fuel points, Brittany has seized the lead by 6 over Mike Salinas. Justin Ashley third, Steve Torrance remains fourth, Josh Hart fifth, Sean Langdon and Leah Pruitt now deadlocked in the 6th spot. Austin Brock, Doug Coletta, and Clay Milliken round out the top 10. Yes, we'll be right back at you next week at the NHRA Flavor Pack Northwest Nationals, beginning our coverage Saturday, July 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Qualifying coverage continues Sunday, July 31st at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. And final round elimination coverage same day at July 31st, 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Right here where you're watching this race today, you'll come right back at 4 p.m. Eastern next week as we race in the Pacific Northwest. We're hearing John Force has found a camera and a microphone. Look out below.
John Force may have been on the losing end of his own final round, but you were the first one to greet Brittany, to congratulate her when she got out of the car. As a dad, what do these moments mean?
It's a great moment. We wanted to double up, and sometimes it don't work that way. But at the end of the day, this is what Bruton Smith built. You know what I'm saying? To see the people happy. Even though I lost, you know, Bobby Tasca, young kid getting a win this year, Brittany moving into the points lead. This is what it was all about. And we owe a lot to Bruton Smith. And just to say thank you and we love you.
Well said, John Force. The sport of drag racing, all of American Motorsports, owes a very large debt to that visionary track builder and operator. It seems as though it is untoppable, but the good news is we get a chance to do it all again next week. Denver was great. Sonoma has been spectacular. And the only question that remains is how wild will it get in the woods of the Pacific Northwest? The drivers are gathering, the social media photos being taken, and now it's time to go down to the Sunoco Winner's Circle, and the core bell's gonna flow. Congratulations to our champions, Joey Gladstone, Erica Enders, Brittany Force, and Bob Tasca. What an electrifying day of competition we have had here in Sonoma, California. On behalf of Jamie Howe, on behalf of Bruno Massel, on behalf of Tony Pedregon, on behalf of our entire NHRA on Fox crew, we hope you've enjoyed this day as much as we have. And the best news I can give you is we're going to do it all again starting next Saturday with our FS1 qualifying coverage. And next Sunday, we'll be back with more qualifying. And at 4 p.m. Eastern, right back here again with our eliminations coverage. Thanks to the Fatheads Eyewear drone, and thanks to those pistons and blowers that gave up their existence on the name of Top Fuel Drag Racing. We'll see you again starting next weekend in Seattle.